The boardroom doors slammed shut with a sound like a gunshot. Elena Voss froze, her hand still reaching for the handle that wouldn't turn. Behind her, 5 men she'd trusted for years sat motionless, their faces blank as masks. The screens went black. The emergency lights flickered, and on the polished table a contract she'd never seen before waited with a pen beside it. "Sign it," said the voice from the shadows. 30 floors below, Ryan Cole heard the lock engage and knew someone was about to die tonight. But before we dive into this story of betrayal, survival, and one man's impossible choice, hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Now, let's go back to where it all began. The thing about Elena Voss that most people didn't understand was that she'd never wanted to be CEO. She'd inherited the position the way some people inherit debt, suddenly, violently, and with no good options. Voss Industries had been her father's empire, built from shipping containers and steel, from handshake deals and 14-hour days. When the heart attack took him at 62, the board had looked at his only child and seen a problem to be managed. That was 18 months ago. Now, at 29, Elena had proven them wrong in every measurable way. Revenue up 40%, 2 major acquisitions, a product line that had Silicon Valley venture capitalists sending flowers to her assistant. She'd done it without flash, without drama, just relentless competence and a willingness to outwork anyone in the building, which is why the emergency meeting made no sense. The text had come through at 9:47 p.m., marked urgent from Richard Holloway, her CFO. Board convened. Security matter. 42nd floor, conference room A. Now. Elena had been home exactly 20 minutes, shoes off, wine poured, reviewing contracts for a supplier negotiation in Seoul. The kind of quiet evening that felt like luxury when you ran a company with 4,000 employees. She'd stared at her phone, reading the message 3 times. Security matter. At 10 p.m. on a Thursday. Her first instinct had been to call Holloway back. Her second, the one she followed, was to get dressed and get there fast. The building at night felt different. The lobby that hummed with activity during business hours sat empty except for the security guard, a new guy she didn't recognize who'd waved her through without checking ID. The elevator ride to 42 was smooth and silent, just her reflection in the polished steel doors, dark blazer over a gray shirt, hair pulled back in a way that meant business. The doors opened to darkness. Not complete darkness. Emergency lighting strips along the baseboards cast everything in a sickly green glow, but every overhead light, every desk lamp, every monitor in the executive suite was dead. Elena stepped out slowly, her heels clicking on marble that suddenly felt too loud. Hello? Nothing. The hallway stretched ahead, offices on either side with glass walls that showed empty chairs and blank screens. Her office was to the left, Holloway's to the right, and conference room A straight ahead at the end of the hall. She could see a sliver of light under that door. Elena's phone buzzed. Another text from Holloway. "Where are you?" She typed back. "At the elevator. What's going on?" The response came immediately. "Get in here." Something in her chest tightened. She'd built her career on reading subtext, on knowing when a negotiation was about to go sideways, when a smile meant danger. This felt wrong. But conference room A was 30 feet away, and whatever was happening, hiding in a dark hallway, wasn't going to solve it. She walked forward. The door opened before she reached it. Richard Holloway stood there, 61 years old and impeccably dressed even at this hour, his silver hair perfect under the conference room lights. He didn't smile. "Elena, thank you for coming so quickly. What's the security matter? Come in, we'll explain." She stepped past him into the room, and that's when she felt it. The shift in air pressure, the click of a lock engaging, the subtle wrongness of a trap springing shut. 5 men sat around the conference table. She knew all of them. David Chen, her head of legal, fingers steepled in front of him. Marcus Webb, operations director, staring at the table. James Portman and Robert Lassiter, both board members since her father's time, both looking anywhere but at her. And at the head of the table, in her father's old chair, sat Gregory Vaughn. Vaughn was new money pretending to be old. 53, with the kind of tan that came from country clubs, and the kind of smile that came from practice. He'd bought into Voss Industries 6 months ago, a private equity firm taking a strategic stake that the board had approved over her objections. Since then, he'd been circling, asking questions, requesting data, positioning himself as a concerned investor who just wanted to help. Now he sat in her father's chair, and the smile was gone. "Elena," Vaughn said, "sit down." "I'll stand. What's this about?" "We have a situation that requires immediate action, time-sensitive, hence the late hour." She looked at Holloway, who'd moved to stand by the door, blocking it. "Richard, what's going on?" "There have been some concerns," Holloway said quietly, "about company direction, fiscal responsibility, risk management." "Concerns from who?" "From all of us," Vaughn said. He pulled a folder from in front of him, slid it across the polished wood. "We've been reviewing the acquisitions you pushed through last quarter, the Seoul expansion, the R&D spending on the new automation systems, and we found some troubling patterns." Elena didn't touch the folder. Patterns. Decisions made without proper board consultation. Contracts signed above your authorization level. Financial projections that don't align with reality. Vaughn leaned back, casual, like he was discussing the weather. In short, a pattern of recklessness that puts this entire company at risk. The air in the room felt thick. Elena looked from face to face. Chen wouldn't meet her eyes. Webb looked sick. The board members seemed carved from stone. Only Holloway looked back at her, and what she saw there made her stomach drop. Pity. "That's bullshit," Elena said clearly. "Every decision I made was vetted by legal, approved by finance, and documented in board minutes. You want to question my judgment? Fine. But don't lie about the process." "The process," Vaughn said, "is exactly what we're questioning, which is why we need to address this tonight before it becomes a public problem." He pulled another document from the folder, placed it in front of her. "This is a temporary reassignment of duties, 60 days while we conduct an independent audit. You'll step back from operational control, maintain your title and compensation, and allow a management team to stabilize things." Elena picked up the paper. It was dense with legal language, but the core was simple. She'd be CEO in name only. Every decision, every hire, every contract would flow through a committee headed by Vaughn. She'd be a figurehead. "And if I refuse? Then we vote to remove you, tonight. And the headlines tomorrow will say you were fired for financial misconduct pending investigation." Vaughn's voice didn't rise, didn't change. "Your father built this company on reputation, Elena. His name means trust. You really want to destroy that?" There it was. The knife slipped between her ribs so smoothly she almost didn't feel it. "You can't vote me out," she said. "Not without cause. My father's will put protections in place." "Your father's will," David Chen said, speaking for the first time, "contained provisions for removal in cases of fiduciary breach. We have documentation of unauthorized expenditures, Elena, contracts you signed without board approval. It's all there." "Forged documentation, you mean?" Chen's expression didn't change. "Documentation that will hold up in court. We've been very thorough." The room tilted slightly. Not physically. Elena's balance was fine, her vision clear, but the ground under her feet had just shifted. This wasn't a concerned board trying to course correct. This was a coup, planned and executed with surgical precision, and she'd walked right into it. "How long have you been planning this?" she asked quietly. Vaughn checked his watch. "We'd like an answer by midnight. That gives you 23 minutes to think it over. Sign the reassignment, or we proceed with removal. Your choice." "That's not a choice." "No," Vaughn agreed. "It's really not." Elena looked at the men around the table again. These were people she'd worked with, eaten with, trusted with the future of her father's legacy. Chen had been at her father's funeral. Webb had brought his kids to the company Christmas party. Holloway had taught her how to read a balance sheet when she was 16, and now they sat silent while Vaughn tried to take everything. "I need to call my lawyer," Elena said. "No phones." Vaughn nodded to Holloway, who pulled Elena's cell from his pocket. He'd taken it when she came through the door, so smoothly she hadn't noticed. "No outside contact until we have an agreement. Can't risk you trying to spin this to the press. That's illegal. So sue me. After you sign." Elena's mind raced. The room had no windows. Conference room A was designed for confidential meetings, walls solid, door reinforced. Her phone was gone. The building was empty except for whoever Vaughn had stationed to ensure this went smoothly. She could scream, could try to force the door, but that would just accelerate things. She needed time and information. "What's your play here, Gregory?" She used his first name deliberately, watching his jaw tighten. "You get control for 60 days, then what? You strip the assets, sell off the profitable divisions? This company is worth more intact than in pieces." "This company," Vaughn said, "is worth exactly what someone will pay for it. And right now, I have buyers lined up who see the value you've been too sentimental to recognize. Your father built an empire, but he also built a monument to his own ego. Time to cash out." "My father built something that lasts." "Your father is dead, and you're about to learn that sentiment doesn't pay dividends." Vaughn stood, buttoned his jacket. 19 minutes, Elena. Use them wisely." He walked out. The others followed, Chen, Webb, the board members, all filing out like mourners at a funeral. Only Holloway remained, standing by the door with her phone in his hand. "Richard," Elena said, "don't do this." "I'm sorry," he said, and he actually sounded like he meant it. "But this is bigger than you, bigger than all of us. He's going to destroy everything. He's going to make us rich. There's a difference." Holloway glanced at the phone in his hand. "Sign the paper, Elena. Walk away with your dignity. It's the best option you have." Then he left too, and the lock clicked behind him. Elena stood alone in the silent room. But 30 floors down and 300 feet away, Ryan Cole was not having a good night. The coffee machine in the security break room had died at 7 p.m., which meant he'd been running on the dregs of the morning pot for the last 4 hours. The new guy on lobby duty, Martinez, a kid fresh out of some rent-a-cop academy, kept calling up with questions that should have been obvious. And now, at 10:14 p.m., Ryan's access card wasn't working on the executive suite elevator. He stood in the lobby, card in hand, watching the reader flash red for the third time. "Martinez," he called over, "when did they change the card protocols?" Martinez looked up from his phone. "Huh?" "The access cards. Mine's not reading for executive floors." "Oh. Yeah, Mr. Vaughn had IT update the system this afternoon. New security measures or something." Ryan looked at the kid. Really looked at him. "What's your last name again?" "Martinez." "Your full name?" Carlos Martinez." "And you started when?" Martinez shifted. "Today. Well, technically yesterday. I did orientation Monday, but this is my first real shift." "Who hired you?" "The staffing agency, Guardian something. They contract for building security." Ryan had worked security for Voss Industries for 3 years. Before that, 8 years as an MP in the Marines, 1 tour in Afghanistan that he didn't talk about, and a marriage that had ended when his wife's cancer did. He'd taken this job because it was quiet, because it paid enough to support his daughter, and because after years of violence, he'd wanted to protect things instead of destroying them. In 3 years, he'd never seen them use a staffing agency. "Who authorized the contract?" Ryan asked. "I don't know, man. I just show up where they tell me." Ryan pulled out his own phone, pulled up the security roster. Martinez's name didn't appear. Neither did the 3 other new guards who'd rotated through in the last week. And the normal night shift supervisor, Frank Delgado, who'd worked here since before Ryan started, was marked as on leave. "Sick leave," the note said. "Family emergency." Frank didn't have family. His wife had passed 5 years ago, no kids, no siblings. Ryan had gone to the funeral. "Martinez," Ryan said carefully. "Where's Frank tonight?" "No clue. I got the assignment this morning." Ryan tried his card again. Still red. He pulled out his radio, switched to the security office channel. "Control, this is Cole. I need building access restored to my card." Static. "Control, do you copy?" More static, then a voice that wasn't familiar. Yeah, hold on. What's your employee number?" Ryan recited it, waited. "Shows here your access is restricted pending review. Supervisor authorization required." "Who's the supervisor on duty?" Looks like that's also pending. Systems showing some updates in progress." Ryan clicked off. Something was very wrong. He'd felt this before, that prickle at the back of his neck that said the situation was deteriorating. In Kandahar, it had been the moment before an IED went off. In the hospital with Sarah, It had been the moment before the doctor said, "There's nothing more we can do." He'd learned to trust that feeling because ignoring it got people killed. The building wasn't right. New guards with no background. System lockouts. His supervisor missing. And now, past 10 p.m., the executive suite suddenly needed an emergency meeting. Ryan looked up at the ceiling, at the cameras that should have been recording every corner of the lobby. The red lights that usually blinked to show they were active were dark. "Martinez," he said, "when did the cameras go down?" "They're not down. I can see them right here." Martinez tapped his monitor. Ryan walked over, looked at the screen. 4 camera feeds cycling through different angles. Lobby, elevator bank, loading dock, parking garage. All showing empty spaces, quiet hallways. All time stamped from 6:47 p.m. The feeds were looped. "Son of a bitch," Ryan said quietly. "What?" Ryan didn't answer. He was already moving, heading for the stairwell. If his card didn't work on the elevator, he'd take the stairs. 42 floors. He'd done worse. "Hey," Martinez called. "You can't just—" Ryan hit the stairwell door at a jog. It opened. Whatever they'd done to lock down the elevators hadn't extended to the emergency exits yet. He started climbing, taking stairs 2 at a time, his mind running through possibilities. A security lockdown could mean anything. Could be a threat. Could be a drill. Could be corporate espionage. But the timing was wrong. The execution sloppy. Real security protocols didn't replace trained guards with temps and didn't loop camera feeds. Real security didn't lock out supervisors. This was someone trying to look like security while doing something else entirely. Ryan hit the 10th floor, breathing steady. He'd slowed to a sustainable pace. This wasn't a sprint. It was an ascent. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. But in his line of work, unknown numbers sometimes meant his daughter's school or the hospital or something that couldn't wait. "Cole? Ryan?" A woman's voice tight with stress. "It's Sarah's teacher, Mrs. Patterson. I'm so sorry to call so late, but there's been an incident." His blood went cold. Sarah was 10, staying with his sister tonight because his shift ran late. "What kind of incident?" "Nothing serious. She's fine. But there was a man at pickup today who said he was authorized to collect her. Had all the right paperwork, your ID, everything. But Sarah said she didn't know him, and our policy is, you didn't release her." Ryan's voice came out flat. "Of course not. But he was very insistent, and the paperwork looked legitimate. I wanted to check with you directly." Ryan's mind raced. He'd never authorized anyone except his sister to pick up Sarah, never filed alternate paperwork. What did he look like? 30s, maybe? Dark suit, very professional. He said there was a family emergency and you'd cleared it with the office. That's a lie. Don't let anyone take her. Call the police if he comes back. Already done. I just wanted you to know. Ryan hung up, started climbing faster. They weren't just locking down the building, they were putting pressure on him. Whoever had planned this knew about Sarah, knew she was leverage, and knew exactly where to push to make him back off, which meant they'd done their homework, and they considered him a threat worth neutralizing. 22nd floor. His legs burned, his breath came harder, but he didn't slow. The stairwell was concrete and steel, echoing with his footfalls. No cameras here. Fire code required clear exit paths, no surveillance. He pulled his phone again, texted his sister. "Lock the doors, don't answer for anyone, I'll call in 10. The reply came fast. "What's wrong? Just do it." He rounded the 32nd floor landing and heard voices above him. Male voices, casual conversation drifting down through the stairwell. "Supposed to be done by 11. Just standing here like idiots. Paying us enough to care." Ryan slowed, moved quieter. 2 men, maybe 3, stationed somewhere above him, guarding the executive floors. He reached the 39th floor landing and stopped. The voices were clearer now, directly overhead. Definitely 2 men positioned at the 42nd floor stairwell entrance. He could hear the scrape of a chair, the rustle of someone shifting weight. Guards. But not real security. Real security would be alert, would have heard him coming, would have challenged him by now. These were bodies filling space, minimum wage muscle hired to look intimidating. Ryan could get past them. But that would make noise, would alert whoever was running this operation that their perimeter was compromised. Better to find another way. He backtracked to 39, tested the door. locked from the stairwell side, standard safety measure, kept people from wandering into secure areas. But the locks were simple crash bars, designed to let people out, not keep them in. Ryan pulled a screwdriver from his belt. He'd learned to carry basic tools on night shifts, never knew when you'd need to tighten a loose panel or jimmy a stuck door, and worked the catch. It took 90 seconds, then the bar released and the door swung open. The 39th floor was dark, same emergency lighting as everywhere else. This level housed mid-level management, rows of cubicles and small offices, all empty at this hour. Ryan moved through the shadows, heading for the central elevator bank. If his card didn't work on the elevator controls, he'd find a way to make it work. The elevator maintenance panel was next to the call buttons, a small locked box that contained override controls. Ryan used the screwdriver again, popped it open. Inside, rows of switches and a manual control interface. He'd watched the maintenance crews work on these before, had asked questions because knowing the building's systems was part of his job. He flipped the switch marked Service Mode, pressed the call button. The elevator dinged, doors opening to an empty car. Ryan stepped in, hit 42. The elevator rose smoothly. He knew this was probably stupid. Knew that walking into whatever was happening upstairs with no backup, no plan, and no idea what he was up against violated every tactical principle he'd learned in the Marines. But he also knew that feeling in his gut, that certainty that if he didn't act now, something terrible was going to happen. And he'd lost enough already. He wasn't losing anything else. The elevator slowed. 41. 42. Ding! The doors opened to darkness and silence. Ryan stepped out into the executive suite, and that's when he heard it, faint, coming from down the hall. The sound of someone crying. No, not crying. Breathing hard, fighting to stay quiet. He moved toward the sound, toward the sliver of light under the conference room door, and as he got closer, he heard the voice. A woman's voice, low and angry and scared. Not going to let you do this. A man's voice, cold and amused. You don't have a choice. Ryan's hand went to his belt, to the empty space where his service weapon should have been. But Voss Industries didn't arm their security guards. Liability issues, the handbook said. Less chance of escalation. He'd thought that was reasonable when he signed on. Now he wished he'd argued. The conference room door was heavy, reinforced. He could kick it, could try to force entry, but that would give whoever was inside time to react. Better to be smart. Ryan moved to the wall panel next to the door, the one that controlled the room's electronic locks. Another maintenance panel, another simple override. He pulled the screwdriver, worked the catch, found the manual release. One pull, and the lock would disengage. He took a breath. Whatever was happening in there, whatever he was walking into, there was no going back after this. He thought of Sarah, safe with his sister. Thought of the man who'd tried to take her. Thought of his wife's last words before the cancer took her. Don't let the world make you small. Ryan pulled the release. The lock clicked, and he pushed the door open. Elena heard the lock disengage half a second before the door moved. She'd been standing in front of the table, staring at the contract Vaughn had left, running through options in her head. They all ended the same way, sign and lose slowly, or refuse and lose fast. Her phone was gone, the door was locked, and even if she screamed, there was no one in the building who'd hear her except the people Vaughn had brought. She'd been trying to figure out how to flip the table, how to turn this trap into something she could survive, when she heard the click. Then the door swung open, and a man she'd never seen before stepped into the light. He was maybe 35, medium height, built like someone who'd spent serious time in a gym, but didn't care about looking pretty doing it. Dark hair, dark eyes, wearing the Voss Industries security uniform. Black pants, white shirt, badge on his chest. He took in the room with one quick scan. Elena, the contract, the locked door. You okay? He asked. Elena's first instinct was to say yes, to handle this herself, to not show weakness to a stranger. Her second instinct, the one that won, was to tell the truth. No. The man nodded like that confirmed something. How many people are we dealing with? 6 left the room. Could be more in the building. I don't know. They hurt you? Not yet. Good. Let's keep it that way. He looked at the contract on the table. What's that? A corporate coup disguised as fiscal responsibility. He almost smiled. Sounds about right. I'm Ryan, security. Elena, CEO. She paused. Or I was an hour ago. You still are, unless you signed that paper. I was considering it. Don't. Ryan moved to the door, checked the hallway. Buildings locked down. Cameras are looped, access systems compromised. My supervisor's missing. This isn't just about you. Elena felt something shift in her chest. Not hope, exactly, but the absence of total despair. They tried to take your daughter. Ryan's expression didn't change, but his eyes went cold. How do you know that? Because they're thorough, and because they knew I'd walk into this room if they made it look urgent enough. They profile, they plan, they execute. She picked up the contract, held it up. This isn't amateur hour. No, Ryan agreed, but neither am I. Footsteps in the hall. Multiple people, moving fast. Ryan pulled back from the door, positioned himself between Elena and the entrance. No weapon, Elena noticed. Just his hands and whatever training he had. It wouldn't be enough. You should go, Elena said. This isn't your fight. They made it my fight when they went after my kid. Ryan's voice was quiet, conversational, like they were discussing the weather. Besides, I don't leave people trapped in rooms with the lights off. Bad habit to develop. The footsteps stopped outside the door. Then Vaughn's voice, sharp with anger. Who disabled the lock? Don't know, sir. System shows manual override. Find him! Now! The door slammed open. 3 men rushed in, not the board members, not the executives. These were security, real muscle, built like linebackers and moving like they knew how to handle resistance. Behind them, Vaughn stood in the doorway, his face red with fury. Mr. Cole, Vaughn said, you're out of your depth. Ryan didn't move. Maybe, but I'm still standing between you and her. That's a choice you'll regret. I've regretted better choices. This one I can live with. The first guard moved forward. Ryan shifted, angled his body, and Elena saw it happen before it did. Saw the guard's weight distribution, saw Ryan's positioning, saw exactly how this was going to end badly. Then Ryan moved. It wasn't flashy, no movie choreography, no spinning kicks, just brutal, efficient violence. Ryan ducked under the guard's reach, drove an elbow into the man's solar plexus, followed it with a knee that dropped him gasping. The second guard came in fast, got an arm around Ryan's neck, tried to choke him out. Ryan twisted, broke the hold, delivered 3 rapid strikes that sent the guard stumbling back into a chair. The third guard pulled a taser. Don't, Ryan said. The guard fired anyway. Ryan took the hit in the chest, 50,000 volts locking his muscles, dropping him to his knees. But even as he fell, he was moving, grabbing the wires, following them back to the guard's hand, yanking hard enough to pull the man off balance. They went down together in a tangle of limbs and electrical current. Elena acted on instinct. She grabbed the chair behind her, swung it hard into the third guard's back. He went down, and the taser fell from his hand. Ryan kicked it away, rolled to his feet. His shirt was scorched where the barbs had hit, his breathing ragged, but his eyes were clear. Thanks, he said. Don't mention it. Vaughn hadn't moved from the doorway. He looked at his downed guards, at Elena and Ryan standing together, and his expression shifted from anger to calculation. This doesn't change anything, Vaughn said. You're still trapped, still surrounded, and now you've assaulted my security team, which gives me legal grounds to have you arrested for corporate terrorism. Your security team isn't security, Ryan said. They're hired muscle from a contractor with a fake license. I checked. Vaughn's eyes narrowed. You've been busy. It's my job. Or it was before you tried to replace me with temps. Ryan moved toward the door, slow and deliberate. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to step aside. We're going to walk out of this building. And tomorrow, when the lawyers and the press and the police start asking questions, you're going to have a really hard time explaining why you locked the CEO in a room and tried to force her to sign away control. I have 6 board members who will testify she's mentally unstable. I have documentation of financial misconduct. You have nothing, Elena said. She'd picked up the contract, was holding it like a weapon. Because I didn't sign. And without my signature, this is just paper. Worthless paper from a failed coup. Vaughn looked at her for a long moment. Then he smiled, and it was the worst thing Elena had seen all night. "You think you've won," he said softly. "You think this ends with you walking out. But you have no idea what you're up against. No idea who's invested in seeing you fail. This building, this company, your father's precious legacy, it's all built on sand, Elena, and the tide's coming in." He stepped back into the hallway. The guards were groaning, stirring, starting to recover. "Come on," Ryan said. "We need to move." They ran. The stairwell door slammed behind them with a sound like a gunshot. Elena's heels clicked against concrete as she followed Ryan down, taking stairs 3 at a time, one hand on the railing to keep from pitching forward. Behind them, shouts echoed through the building's skeleton, voices calling coordinates and positions like they were hunting prey, which Elena realized they were. "How many exits?" Ryan asked without slowing. "Main lobby, loading dock, executive garage." Elena's breath came hard. She ran 3 times a week, but never in heels, never down 42 flights. Parking structure connects to the subway tunnel, but that's usually locked after 8. "It's not locked tonight. Nothing is." Ryan rounded a landing, glanced up at the sound of doors opening above them. "They'll have the lobby covered, probably the dock too." "So where are we going?" "Basement. Maintenance access. Every building this size has secondary exits for equipment and service." "You've been planning escape routes?" "It's called doing your job." Ryan hit the 28th floor, didn't slow. "You don't work security without knowing every way in and out. Kind of defeats the purpose." Another door opened above them, closer this time. Heavy footsteps, multiple people, descending fast. Elena risked a look up and saw shadows moving in the stairwell, 3 floors above and closing. "They're gaining," she said. "Let them." Ryan pulled her through the door at the 19th floor into a corridor she'd never seen before. No windows, no artwork, just gray walls and industrial lighting. Service level, she realized. The parts of the building where actual work happened, away from the polished marble and glass that clients saw. He moved fast, checking doors as they passed. Most were locked, but the third one opened to reveal a janitorial closet. Mops, buckets, cleaning supplies stacked on metal shelves. Ryan pulled her inside, shut the door, and put a finger to his lips. They stood in darkness that smelled like bleach and floor wax. Elena's heart hammered so hard she was sure the people hunting them could hear it. She focused on breathing quietly, on not moving, on listening to the footsteps that thundered past in the hallway outside. Lost them. "Can't just disappear. Check every floor." The voices faded. Ryan waited 30 seconds, then cracked the door open, peered out. "Clear. Come on." They moved deeper into the service corridor, away from the stairwell, toward the building's core. The walls here were exposed concrete, pipes running overhead, the guts of the structure visible in a way that felt almost obscene. Elena had worked in this building for 18 months and had never seen this part of it. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" she asked. "Marines. 8 years, military police. Got good at handling people who didn't want to be handled." "You could have killed those guards." "Could have. Didn't." Ryan stopped at an intersection, checked both ways. They were doing a job. Didn't mean they deserved to die for it. "Even though they were trying to kill you?" "They were trying to restrain me. Different thing." He turned left, toward a set of double doors marked "Authorized Personnel Only." You kill someone, you carry that forever. Better to avoid it when you can. The doors opened to a freight elevator, wide enough to move furniture, with walls scarred from years of abuse. Ryan hit the button marked B3. The elevator lurched downward with a groan that sounded like it was considering giving up entirely. "Vaughn said something in there," Elena said, "about this company being built on sand, about people being invested in seeing me fail. What did he mean?" Ryan leaned against the wall, watching the floor numbers descend. His shirt was still scorched from the taser, and Elena could see red marks on his chest where the barbs had hit. He should have been in pain, should have been shaking from the electrical shock, but he just looked tired. "You really don't know?" he asked. "Know what?" "Your father had enemies, a lot of them." The elevator shuddered past the second basement level. "I worked night shift, so I saw things. People coming in after hours. Meetings in offices that should have been empty. Your father arguing with men in suits who didn't sign in at the desk. Elena felt something cold settle in her stomach. My father ran a clean company. Your father ran a successful company. That's not always the same thing. Ryan met her eyes. I'm not saying he was dirty, but success that big, that fast, you make deals. Some of them stick. And Vaughn? Vaughn's a cleaner, the kind of guy who comes in when deals go bad and makes them go away. He's not interested in running your company, Elena. He's interested in liquidating it. The elevator stopped. B3. The doors opened to a tunnel that stretched into darkness, lit by occasional work lights that cast everything in harsh yellow. The air smelled like oil and old water, and somewhere in the distance machinery hummed. What's down here? Elena asked. Service tunnel. Connects to the subway maintenance access, built in the 70s when they put in the red line. Ryan started walking, his boots echoing on concrete. Most people forget it exists, but if you know where to look, you can get anywhere in the financial district without going above ground. They walked in silence for a minute, the tunnel stretching ahead like a throat. Elena had worn a blazer to the meeting, professional and appropriate for a boardroom. Now she wished she had a coat. The temperature down here was at least 15 degrees colder than street level. My father never mentioned tunnels, she said. Your father probably used them. How else do you think he moved between buildings without the press following? Ryan stopped at a junction where 3 tunnels met, checked a map painted on the wall. When you're running an empire, you need paths that don't show up on city plans. You sound like you admired him. I respected him. Different thing. Ryan pointed down the left tunnel. He gave me a job when I needed one. Didn't ask too many questions about why I left the Marines early. That counts for something. They turned left, following the tunnel deeper. The hum of machinery grew louder, and Elena realized they were passing under the subway lines. Every few minutes, a distant rumble would shake the walls as a train passed overhead. Why did you leave the Marines early? Elena asked. Ryan was quiet for long enough that she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, my wife got sick, cancer. By the time they diagnosed it, it was stage 4. I took discharge to be with her for the last 6 months. I'm sorry. Yeah, me too. He stopped at a steel door set into the tunnel wall, tried the handle. Locked. She made me promise I'd take care of Sarah, that I wouldn't let the world make me bitter. Some days that's harder than others. He pulled out his screwdriver, worked the lock. Elena watched him manipulate the mechanism with the same efficiency he'd used fighting the guards. No wasted movement, no hesitation. This was someone who'd learned to solve problems by doing, not theorizing. The lock clicked. Ryan pushed the door open to reveal another stairwell, this one older, concrete crumbling at the edges. Up 2 flights, he said. That'll put us in the subway station at Pearl Street. From there, we can get to street level without going through your building. They climbed. Elena's legs burned, her feet ached from running in heels, and her blazer felt like it weighed 50 pounds. But she kept moving because stopping meant getting caught, and getting caught meant signing that contract or worse. When we get out, she said, what's the plan? You tell me. You're the CEO. I'm the CEO of a company that just tried to stage a coup against me. My CFO took my phone. My board voted to remove me. My head of legal forged documents to make it look legitimate. Elena laughed, and it came out bitter. I don't even know who I can trust. You can trust me. I don't know you. No, Ryan agreed. But I just took a taser for you, and I'm currently committing about 6 different violations of my employment contract by helping you escape. So maybe give me the benefit of the doubt. They reached the top of the stairs. Another door, this one marked with a faded sign, MT, a personnel only. Beyond it, Elena could hear the distant rumble of trains and the echo of voices in the station. Okay, she said. Benefit of the doubt. What do we do? Ryan cracked the door, peered out. We get somewhere safe, somewhere Vaughn can't reach. Then we figure out what leverage you have that he doesn't. I don't have any leverage. He has the board, the documentation, probably the press lined up to print whatever story he feeds them. He doesn't have your signature. That contract isn't worth anything without it. Ryan pulled the door wider. And he doesn't have you, so as long as you're free, you're a threat. They stepped out into the subway station. It was late enough that the platform was mostly empty. A handful of people waiting for the last train, most of them staring at their phones, not paying attention to a woman in a business suit and a security guard emerging from a maintenance door. Elena followed Ryan to the stairs, up to street level, and then they were out, standing on Pearl Street with the city spreading around them in a grid of light and shadow. The air was cold, carrying the smell of exhaust and street vendor food, and Elena had never been so grateful to be outside in her life. "Now what?" she asked. Ryan pulled out his phone. "Now I call my sister, make sure Sarah's okay. Then we find you a lawyer who isn't on Vaughn's payroll." "At 11 p.m.? You know any lawyers who keep normal hours?" Elena thought for a moment. "Yeah, one. But she's going to think I'm crazy when I tell her what happened." "Tell her anyway. Crazy's better than dead." Ryan stepped away to make his call, and Elena stood alone on the sidewalk, watching traffic pass. Somewhere in the building behind her, Vaughn was probably tearing the place apart looking for her. Somewhere in the city, journalists were sleeping, unaware that tomorrow's news cycle would be dominated by corporate scandal. And somewhere in the network of deals and grudges her father had left behind, the real reason for all this was waiting to be uncovered. She pulled herself together, smoothed her blazer, and tried to look like someone who hadn't just escaped a hostile takeover by running through maintenance tunnels. It didn't really work, but the effort helped. Ryan came back, his face tight. "Sarah's fine. My sister's got the doors locked, and the school's filing a police report about the attempted pickup." "They'll connect it to this," Elena said. "Vaughn will spin it as you kidnapping me, using your daughter as cover." "Let him try. I've got texts from Sarah's teacher time-stamped before any of this happened." Ryan started walking, and Elena fell into step beside him. "Besides, kidnapping implies I took you against your will. You came willingly." "Did I? You telling me you wanted to sign that contract?" "No?" "Then you came willingly." He turned down a side street away from the main thoroughfares. "Where does your lawyer live?" "Brooklyn, Park Slope." "We'll take the subway. Less chance of being tracked than a cab." They descended into another station, this one busier, and bought tickets with cash Ryan pulled from his wallet. The train came 3 minutes later, half full with night shift workers and people heading home from late shifts. Elena and Ryan sat in the back, not talking, just watching the city slide past through dirty windows. Elena's mind wouldn't stop working. Vaughn had moved too fast, too precisely, for this to be improvised. He'd studied the company, identified vulnerabilities, recruited people she trusted. That took time. Planning, which meant he'd been setting this up for months, maybe since the day he bought into Voss Industries. "He knew about my father," she said quietly. Ryan looked at her. "What?" "Vaughn. He mentioned my father's reputation, his legacy, said I was destroying it with reckless decisions." Elena watched her reflection in the window opposite, saw a woman who looked 10 years older than she had this morning. "But every decision I made was to protect what my father built, to keep the company growing, keep it relevant. I wasn't being reckless." "No," Ryan said. "You were being threatening." "To who?" "To whoever benefits from the company failing." The train lurched around a curve and Ryan braced himself against the seat. "Think about it. Your father dies suddenly. Heart attack. No warning. You take over. 6 months later, Vaughn shows up with a strategic investment. Now he's trying to force you out. What's the common thread?" Elena's breath caught. "You think my father's death wasn't natural. I think your father was 52 and had the best health care money could buy. I think heart attacks that sudden are rare in men that young with no history." Ryan's voice was careful, like he was walking through a minefield. "And I think the timing is convenient for people who wanted control." "That's conspiracy theory." "Maybe. Or maybe it's pattern recognition." He met her eyes. "How much do you know about your father's health?" "He was fine. He ran marathons, played tennis twice a week, never smoked, barely drank." "And the autopsy?" "Said massive coronary failure, the kind that happens fast, no warning signs." Elena felt sick. "I never questioned it. He was my father. I was grieving. The doctor said it was rare, but not impossible." "Were those his regular doctors?" "No. He collapsed at the office. They took him to Presbyterian. He was already dead when they got there." Ryan looked away, out at the darkness of the tunnel. "I'm not saying I'm right. But if I wanted to kill someone and make it look natural, that's how I do it. Sudden, public, witnesses everywhere. No chance for an investigation because everyone assumes it's just bad luck. The train pulled into their station. They got off, climbed stairs to street level, and emerged into Park Slope's quiet residential streets. It was the kind of neighborhood where people paid extra for trees and brownstones, where you could almost forget you were in New York. My lawyer's name is Jennifer Park, Elena said. She handled some contracts for us last year. Personal contracts, not company business. My father trusted her. She know about corporate law? She knows about fighting. Used to be a prosecutor. Now she does defense work for people who can't afford anyone else. Elena turned down a tree-lined street. She'll help, if anyone will. Jennifer Park's brownstone was dark except for a single light on the third floor. Elena stood on the stoop, suddenly aware of how insane this was going to sound. It was almost midnight. She had no phone, no proof, just a wild story and a security guard she'd met 2 hours ago. She rang the bell anyway. Footsteps inside. A pause. Then the intercom crackled. "This better be life or death," Jennifer's voice said. "It might be," Elena replied. Another pause. Then the lock buzzed open. They climbed 3 flights to find Jennifer waiting in her doorway, wearing sweatpants and a law school t-shirt, her black hair pulled into a messy bun. She was 40-something, compact and intense, with the kind of eyes that missed nothing. She looked at Elena, at Ryan, then back at Elena. "You look like hell," Jennifer said. "I feel worse. Come in. Tell me why you're on my doorstep at midnight, looking like you ran through a war zone." They sat in Jennifer's living room, books everywhere, case files stacked on the coffee table, a cat that immediately claimed Ryan's lap despite his obvious discomfort. Elena told the story start to finish. The emergency meeting, the locked room, Vaughn's ultimatum, the escape through the tunnels. She left nothing out. Jennifer listened without interrupting. When Elena finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "You're sure about the documentation?" Jennifer asked finally. "The forged contracts? David Chen told me they'd been thorough, that it would hold up in court. Chen's a good lawyer, but he's not that good." Jennifer stood, started pacing. "You can't just forge a CEO's signature on major expenditures and expect it to survive scrutiny. The forensic accountants would tear it apart." "Unless the point isn't to win in court," Ryan said. Both women looked at him. "Vaughn doesn't need the forgeries to be perfect. He just needs them to be good enough to muddy the water, create reasonable doubt, make it look like maybe Elena did lose control of spending." Jennifer nodded slowly. "Reputation damage. Even if she fights it and wins, the cloud stays. Investors get nervous, stock price drops, company becomes vulnerable to hostile acquisition." "Which is exactly what Vaughn wants," Elena said. "He's not trying to run Voss Industries. He's trying to dismantle it." "Why?" "That's what we need to find out." Jennifer pulled her laptop from a desk in the corner, flipped it open. "Okay, first things first. We need to freeze any action the board might try to take. I'll file an emergency injunction first thing tomorrow morning, claiming they violated corporate governance procedures. That'll buy us time." "They'll fight it," Elena said. "Let them. Fighting means discovery. Discovery means I get to see their forged documents under oath." Jennifer's fingers flew across the keyboard. "Next, we need a forensic audit of the company's finances. Independent firm, no connection to Vaughn or the board. We find the real numbers, we prove your decisions were sound." "How long will that take?" "Weeks, maybe months." "I don't have months. Vaughn made it clear this is a sprint, not a marathon." Jennifer looked up. "Then we need leverage faster than the legal system can move. We need something that makes him back off before the fight even starts." Ryan had been quiet, stroking the cat absently. Now he spoke up. "Vaughn mentioned investors, people who wanted to see Elena fail. Who's invested in Voss Industries besides him?" Elena pulled up the information from memory. 3 major shareholders outside the family trust: Blackwell Capital, Meridian Holdings, and a private equity firm called Artemis Group. Combined, they own about 30%. "And Vaughn's firm?" "Griffin Ventures. They bought in 6 months ago, 12% stake. So he needs the other investors on his side to force anything through." Ryan's expression was thoughtful. "What do we know about them?" Blackwell's been with us for years. My father brought them in during the expansion in 2019. Meridian came on board around the same time. Artemis is newer. They bought a stake about 8 months ago, right after my father died. Jennifer had stopped typing. Artemis bought in after your father's death? Yes. Why? Because that's vulture behavior. Good companies don't usually have shares available right after the founder dies unless someone's selling. Jennifer turned the laptop around. Look at this. The screen showed a corporate structure chart, a web of connections between companies. At the center was Artemis Group. Branching out from it were a dozen smaller firms, all interconnected, all leading back to a single name at the top. Marcus Reeves. Elena felt her blood go cold. No. You know him? Ryan asked. He was my father's partner, 20 years ago, before Voss Industries even existed. They built the shipping business together, 50-50 split. Elena stared at the name on the screen. Then they had a falling out. My father bought him out, paid him fair market value. Marcus took the money and disappeared. Disappeared where? Jennifer asked. Private equity. He built Artemis from the ground up, turned it into one of the most aggressive acquisition firms on the East Coast. Elena's mind raced. He swore he'd make my father regret cutting him out, but that was 20 years ago. I thought he'd moved on. Men like that don't move on, Ryan said quietly. They wait. Jennifer pulled up another screen. Artemis has been buying up shares in Voss Industries through shell companies for the last year. Small purchases scattered across different entities, nothing that would trigger disclosure requirements. But added up, they control almost 15%. Combined with Vaughn's 12%, Elena did the math. That's 27%. Add in the board members Vaughn corrupted, and they have working control even without my shares. Unless we can prove the corruption, Jennifer said. Get one of them to flip, testify that Vaughn coerced or bribed them. Who's most likely to break? Elena thought about the men in that conference room. Marcus Webb. He looked sick the whole time. He's operations, not finance. His whole career has been about building things, not tearing them down. If anyone has a conscience left, it's him. Then we talk to Webb, Ryan said. Tomorrow, before Vaughn can consolidate his position. He won't talk to me. Vaughn will have him locked down. So we don't ask permission. Ryan stood, dislodging the cat, who gave him a disgusted look. We show up at his house at 7 a.m. before he leaves for work. Put the evidence in front of him and give him a choice. Testify and walk away clean, or go down with Vaughn when this all collapses. Jennifer nodded. I'll prepare immunity documentation. If he flips, we can get him protection from both criminal and civil liability. He might not care about immunity, Elena said. Marcus Webb is 63. He's worked for Voss Industries for 30 years. This is his legacy, too. Then we appeal to that, Ryan said. We tell him the truth. Vaughn's going to destroy everything your father built, everything Webb helped create, and we give him the chance to stop it. They planned through the night. Jennifer drafted injunctions and immunity agreements, while Elena wrote down everything she could remember about the company's financial decisions, building a timeline that showed her choices had been strategic and sound. Ryan made calls, pulling in favors from former Marine buddies who worked security and investigation, building a network of people who could move fast when needed. At 6 a.m., Jennifer made coffee that tasted like battery acid, and they all drank it anyway. At 6:30, they piled into Jennifer's car, a 10-year-old Honda that had seen better days, and drove to Marcus Webb's house in Westchester. The sun was coming up as they pulled onto his street, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that felt obscene given what they were about to do. Webb's house was colonial style, white with black shutters, the kind of place that said comfortable retirement was on the horizon. Elena's hand shook as they walked up the driveway. Ryan noticed. You okay? No, but I'm doing it anyway. They rang the bell, waited. Marcus Webb opened the door in a bathrobe, coffee cup in hand, looking like he'd aged 5 years overnight. When he saw Elena, his face went gray. They told me you'd signed, he said. They said it was done. They lied, Elena replied. We need to talk. Webb looked past her at Ryan and Jennifer, then back at Elena. For a moment, she thought he was going to close the door in their faces. Then he stepped aside. 5 minutes, he said. Then I'm calling the police. They sat in his living room. Family photos on the walls, grandkids smiling from frames, a life built over decades. Webb didn't offer them coffee. Vaughn's working with Marcus Reeves, Elena said. They're using Artemis Group to buy up shares while forcing me out. Once they have control, they'll liquidate the company and sell the assets. Everything my father built, everything you helped build, gone. Webb's hand trembled on his coffee cup. You can't prove that. We can, Jennifer said. She laid out the corporate structure chart. Artemis has been hiding behind shell companies, but the pattern's clear, and when this goes to court, discovery will expose all of it, including which board members were bribed or coerced into supporting the coup. I wasn't bribed. Then you were coerced, Ryan said, or you believed Vaughn's story about Elena being reckless. Either way, you're caught in the middle of a conspiracy to defraud shareholders. That's federal prison time if you don't cooperate. Webb set his coffee down. His hands were shaking worse now. Vaughn said the company was in trouble, that Elena was making risky decisions that would bankrupt us. He had documentation. Forged documentation, Elena said. David Chen admitted they'd been thorough. That means he knew it was fake, which means everyone in that room knew. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. Then prove it, Jennifer said. She slid the immunity agreement across the table. Testify to what really happened in that meeting. Tell the truth about Vaughn's pressure tactics. Help us prove this was orchestrated fraud, and you walk away with full immunity. Webb stared at the paper like it might bite him. If I sign that, Vaughn will destroy me. If you don't sign it, Vaughn will destroy you anyway, Elena said. He's using you, Marcus. Using all of you. And when this falls apart, he'll throw you to the prosecutors and walk away clean. That's what men like him do. You don't understand the pressure he put on us. The things he said he'd expose. I don't care, Elena cut him off. My father gave you a career. He trusted you with his company, and you sat in that room and watched them try to take it from his daughter. So either you meant that betrayal or you were too weak to stop it. Either way, you owe me the truth. Webb looked at her for a long moment. Then he picked up a pen. Where do I sign? Webb's signature looked shaky on the immunity agreement, like his hand had barely managed to form the letters. Jennifer collected the document, slipped it into her briefcase with the careful precision of someone handling evidence that could detonate careers. Outside, the morning sun climbed higher, painting Webb's kitchen in the kind of cheerful light that felt wrong for what they'd just done. They'll come after me, Webb said. He hadn't moved from his chair, still holding his coffee cup even though it had gone cold. When Vaughn finds out I talked, let him, Elena said. She was standing by the window, watching the street. You're protected now, legally, financially. Jennifer made sure of that. You don't know what he's capable of. Actually, I do. I watched him lock me in a room and try to force me to sign away my company. So, yeah, Marcus, I'm pretty clear on what Vaughn's capable of. Ryan had been quiet, letting Elena and Jennifer handle the interrogation. Now he spoke up. What exactly did Vaughn threaten you with? Webb looked at him, seemed to notice for the first time that there was a security guard in his kitchen. Who are you again? Someone who got tased last night trying to keep Elena alive. Answer the question. Webb set down his cup. He said he had information about some investments I made in 2018. Foreign accounts, shell companies. It was all legal technically, but the optics were bad. If it came out, if the IRS started looking close, I could lose everything. So he had leverage, Jennifer said. Compromat. Classic intimidation tactic. It worked. I panicked. When he said Elena was making dangerous decisions, I believed him because I wanted to believe him, because it was easier than standing up and getting destroyed. Elena turned from the window. What about the others, Chen, Holloway, the board members? Chen's got gambling debts. Vaughn paid them off, owns him completely. Holloway's son is in legal trouble, some securities fraud case that's been quiet so far. Vaughn made it clear he could make that case go away or blow it wide open depending on cooperation. Webb rubbed his face. The board members, Portman and Lassiter, they're just greedy. Vaughn promised them buyout packages worth triple their stock value if they voted to remove you. No threats necessary. And you didn't think to warn me? I thought about it. Every day for the last month I thought about calling you. But I'm 63, Elena. My retirement, my pension, my wife's health care, everything depends on not rocking the boat. I told myself you'd be fine, that you'd find a way through it. His voice cracked. I told myself a lot of things that turned out to be lies. The silence that followed felt heavy enough to crack the foundation. Ryan checked his phone, frowned. We need to move, he said. If Vaughn's people are watching Webb's house, they know we're here by now. They won't try anything in broad daylight, Jennifer said. You want to bet your life on that? Because I don't. Ryan was already heading for the door. Elena, we've got what we came for. Time to go. They left Webb sitting at his kitchen table, looking 10 years older than when they'd arrived. In the car, Jennifer drove faster than was strictly legal, taking turns that would make it hard for anyone to follow. Elena sat in the back seat, staring at her reflection in the window. You think he'll hold? She asked. Webb? Yeah. He's scared, but he's more scared of federal prison than he is of Vaughn. Jennifer glanced in the rearview mirror. The question is whether we can get to the others before Vaughn realizes we're building a case. Chen won't flip, Elena said. If Vaughn owns his debts, he owns Chen. Same with Holloway. His son's freedom is too high a price. Then we go after Vaughn directly, Ryan said. Cut the head off the snake. With what? We have Webb's testimony, but that's just one board member. We need hard evidence of the conspiracy, the forged documents, the shell companies, the connection to Marcus Reeves. Jennifer took a turn that threw them all sideways. The forged documents are in the company's financial systems. I can subpoena them with the injunction, but Vaughn will have time to clean the records before we get access. So we get them before he can clean them, Ryan said. Tonight, while everyone's focused on damage control from Webb's defection. Elena leaned forward. You're talking about breaking into my own company. I'm talking about retrieving evidence of a crime. Slight difference. The building will be locked down. After last night, Vaughn will have real security in place, not just those temp guards. Good. Real security follows protocols. Protocols have weaknesses. Ryan pulled out his phone, started typing. I know a guy who specializes in corporate counter-surveillance. Used to work for the NSA. Now he does private consulting. If there's a way into that building, he'll find it. This is insane, Elena said. Yeah, it is. You have a better option? She didn't. That was the problem. Every legal avenue would take weeks or months, and Vaughn would use that time to consolidate power, liquidate assets, and disappear behind layers of corporate shell games. They needed something fast, something decisive, something that would flip the entire situation before Vaughn could react. They needed to go back into the building where this had all started. Jennifer dropped them at a diner in Queens, nondescript and half-empty. The kind of place where nobody asked questions if you sat in a booth for 6 hours nursing coffee. Ryan made his calls while Elena tried to eat a sandwich that tasted like cardboard. Her body was running on adrenaline and spite at this point, sleep a distant memory. Your guy can get us in? Elena asked when Ryan hung up. He can get me in. You're staying outside. The hell I am. Elena, if this goes bad and you get caught breaking into your own company, Vaughn wins. You'll be arrested for corporate espionage, breaking and entering, whatever else they can throw at you. Game over. And if you get caught? I'm a security guard who thought he saw suspicious activity and investigated. Plausible deniability. Ryan's expression was flat. You hired me to protect the building. I was doing my job. That's not going to hold up. Doesn't need to hold up forever. Just needs to buy time for Jennifer to file the injunction and get the real investigation started. He pushed his coffee away. Look, I get that this is your company, your fight, but you need to stay clean. That's strategic, not personal. Elena wanted to argue, wanted to insist that she wasn't going to hide while someone else took the risk. But Ryan was right, and they both knew it. If she got arrested, the story would be about the reckless CEO who broke into her own building. Vaughn would have won before the trial even started. Fine, she said, but I want real-time updates. Every step you take, I know about it. Deal. Ryan's guy turned out to be a painfully thin man in his 40s named Derek, who showed up at the diner wearing a hoodie and carrying a laptop covered in stickers from hacker conventions. He slid into the booth without introducing himself, opened the laptop, and immediately started typing. Your building's security system is antiquated, Derek said without looking up. They're running software from 2019, which means I can access it through a back door that got patched in 2021. They never updated. Can you get us past the new protocols Vaughn installed? Ryan asked. Already done. I've been in their system for the last 20 minutes. Vaughn's people did a surface-level lockdown, changed some passwords, updated some access cards. But they didn't rebuild the architecture. It's like putting a new lock on a door but leaving the hinges exposed. Derek spun the laptop around. The screen showed a schematic of the Voss Industries building, with security cameras marked as red dots and access points marked in green. Cameras are still on a loop from last night, Derek said. Whoever set that up knew what they were doing, but they got sloppy at 3 a.m., probably thought the crisis was over. There's a 6-minute gap in the footage where the loop resets. If you go in during that gap, the system won't flag it. When's the next gap? Ryan asked. Derek checked his watch. 8 hours, 11:47 p.m. That's cutting it close. Vaughn will have people in the building until at least midnight. So you'll have to work around them. I can give you a path that avoids the main security checkpoints, but once you're inside, you're on your own. Derek pulled up another screen. This one showing the building's internal layout. What floor are you hitting? 42, Executive Suite. The financial servers are in a room behind the CFO's office. Holloway's office, Elena said. Richard would have the forged documents on his personal system. He's old school, keeps backups on a local server instead of trusting the cloud. Derek nodded. That makes it easier. Local servers can be accessed physically if you have the right equipment. He pulled a small device from his pocket, about the size of a USB drive. This is a data cloner. Plug it into the server. It copies everything in about 4 minutes. Fast enough that you can get in and out before anyone notices. Ryan took the device. And if someone does notice, then you run. I can kill the elevators, lock the stairwell doors behind you, buy you maybe 90 seconds. After that, you're improvising. Story of my life, Ryan muttered. They spent the rest of the day planning. Derek mapped out every camera, every access point, every potential obstacle. Jennifer worked on the legal filings, preparing to drop the injunction the moment Ryan retrieved the evidence. Elena tried to rest, but ended up pacing Jennifer's apartment, her mind spinning through scenarios where everything went wrong. At 9 p.m., Ryan left to prepare. Elena walked him to the door. Don't get yourself killed doing this, she said. Wasn't planning on it. I'm serious. You've got a daughter. She needs you. Ryan looked at her for a moment. Your father gave me a job when I needed one, didn't ask questions, didn't judge, just gave me a chance to rebuild my life. I figure I owe him for that. You don't owe him this. Maybe not, but I owe Sarah a world where people like Vaughn don't win by default, where companies don't get gutted because one guy wants to make a profit. He checked his watch. Besides, I'm really starting to dislike being tased. Be nice to return the favor. He left before she could respond. The next 2 hours were the longest of Elena's life. She sat in Jennifer's living room, watching the clock tick toward 11:47, imagining every way this could go wrong. Jennifer tried to distract her with case law and legal strategy, but Elena's mind was already in that building, following Ryan through darkened hallways, waiting for the moment when everything fell apart. At 11:30, her burner phone buzzed. A text from Ryan. In position. At 11:45. Moving. Elena stared at the phone like it might provide more information through sheer force of will. Jennifer sat across from her, laptop open, fingers poised over the keyboard, ready to file the injunction the second Ryan confirmed he had the data. 11:47 came and went in silence. 11:48. 11:49. At 11:50, the phone buzzed again. Inside. Heading to 42. Elena exhaled. First obstacle cleared. Then nothing. 5 minutes of silence that felt like 5 hours. Elena checked the time compulsively, watching seconds crawl past. Jennifer had stopped pretending to work, was just watching the phone too. At 11:57, another text. Found the server. Cloning now. 4 minutes, Derek had said. 4 minutes to copy everything, then get out. Elena did the math. That would put Ryan at 12:01, which meant he'd miss the next camera loop reset. He'd have to take the stairs, hope Derek could cover his exit, hope nobody was checking the feeds at exactly the wrong moment. Too many variables, too many ways to fail. At 12 o'clock, the phone rang. Not a text, a call. Elena's heart stopped. She answered. What's wrong? Ryan's voice came through, tight with tension. Change of plans. I'm not alone. In the background, Elena heard voices. Multiple people moving closer. Who's there? She asked. Everyone. The whole board. Vaughn called an emergency meeting for midnight. Ryan was whispering now. I'm in Holloway's office with the server room door open. If they come in here, I'm done. Abort. Get out now. The clone's at 70%. If I pull it now, we get nothing. Ryan, I'm not leaving without this data. Just tell me you've got a plan for when this goes sideways. Elena looked at Jennifer, who was already typing furiously on her laptop. Jennifer's filing the injunction right now. Soon as it hits the system, the building's under legal hold. Nobody can destroy evidence without facing obstruction charges. That won't stop them from destroying me. Then don't get caught. Ryan's laugh was short and humorless. Great advice. Thanks. The voices in the background got louder. Elena heard Vaughn's voice, clear and commanding. I want a full accounting of every share we control. And find out where Voss went. She's not in her apartment, not at any known associates. She's somewhere planning something. Then Holloway's voice. What about Webb? He's not answering his phone. Webb's compromised. I knew he'd be a weak link. That's why we moved up the timeline. Elena felt ice run through her veins. Ryan, they know about Webb. They're moving faster than we thought. Clone's at 85%. Get out, now! 90%. The voices were right outside the office now. Elena heard a door open, heard footsteps on carpet. Richard, Vaughn said, I need those financial projections we discussed. Holloway's voice closer. They're in my office. Give me 2 minutes. 95%, Ryan whispered. Elena gripped the phone hard enough to hurt. Ryan, he's coming in. I know. She heard a door open, heard Holloway say, What the hell? Then everything happened at once. Ryan's voice, loud and clear. That's far enough, Holloway's startled response. Cole? What are you doing here? Then Vaughn's voice, sharp. Everyone in the conference room, now! Footsteps, rapid and heavy. Multiple people converging. Elena heard Ryan moving, heard the sound of a door slamming, heard chaos erupting in that building 30 miles away. Ryan, she shouted into the phone. The line went dead. Elena stared at the silent phone, her mind racing. Jennifer was on her laptop, typing so fast the keys sounded like gunfire. Injunctions filed, Jennifer said. Buildings under legal hold as of 30 seconds ago. Any evidence destruction is now a federal crime. That doesn't help Ryan. No, but it helps us. Jennifer looked up. If they hurt him, if they even touch him, they're looking at assault charges on top of everything else. Vaughn's smart enough to know that. Vaughn's smart enough to make it look like an accident. Elena was already moving, grabbing her jacket, heading for the door. Jennifer caught her arm. Where are you going? To that building. If Ryan's caught, I'm not leaving him there alone. Elena, that's exactly what Vaughn wants. He gets both of you. This whole thing is over. I don't care. I'm not hiding while someone else fights my battles. Jennifer held her gaze for a moment, then nodded. Okay, but we do this smart. I'm coming with you, and we're bringing backup. What backup? Jennifer was already dialing her phone. Every journalist I know who wants to break the corporate corruption story of the year. We're going to walk into that building with cameras rolling and reporters asking questions. Let's see Vaughn try to disappear Ryan with the press watching. They made calls in the car. Jennifer drove while Elena worked her way through a list of journalists Jennifer provided, offering them the same pitch. Corporate coup, hostile takeover, CEO fighting for her company's survival. 3 hung up immediately. 2 said they'd think about it. But the 6th, a reporter named Sarah Chen, who covered corporate malfeasance for the Times, said she'd meet them at the building in 20 minutes. By the time they pulled up outside Voss Industries, there were 4 news vans parked on the street and a small crowd of reporters setting up cameras. Sarah Chen was there with a photographer, already filming the building's exterior. She spotted Elena and walked over, microphone in hand. Miss Voss, Sarah Chen, New York Times. Is it true you were forcibly removed from your own company last night? Elena looked at the camera, at the little red light that meant this was being recorded, that whatever she said next would be public record. She thought about all the ways this could backfire, all the ways Vaughn could spin this. Then she thought about Ryan, trapped somewhere in that building, and made her choice. Yes, Elena said clearly. Last night, members of my board attempted to force me to sign away control of Voss Industries through intimidation and false documentation. When I refused, they locked me in a conference room. I escaped with the help of a security contractor who's now trapped inside that building because he tried to expose their fraud. Sarah's eyes widen. That's a serious accusation. It's the truth. And I have testimony from a board member who's willing to confirm it under oath. Who? Marcus Webb. He's prepared to testify that Gregory Vaughn orchestrated this entire conspiracy with the goal of liquidating Voss Industries and selling the assets to a private equity firm called Artemis Group. More reporters were gathering now, cameras turning on, microphones extending. Elena kept talking, laying out the whole story in clear, precise language. The emergency meeting, the forged documents, the threats, the escape. She named names, cited dates, built a narrative that was impossible to ignore. Inside the building, lights started coming on. People appeared in windows, looking down at the crowd gathering below. Elena saw movement on the 42nd floor, shadows behind glass. Then the front doors opened, and Gregory Vaughn walked out. He looked calm, composed, like he'd been expecting this. Behind him came Holloway, Chen, the board members. But no Ryan. Vaughn walked straight to the cameras, gave them his best concerned investor smile. I'm afraid Ms. Voss is experiencing a breakdown, he said smoothly. The stress of managing a company this size has proven too much. Last night, the board voted to temporarily relieve her of operational duties pending a psychiatric evaluation. She fled the building in a disturbed state, and we've been trying to locate her ever since to ensure she gets the help she needs. That's a lie, Elena said. Is it? Then why did you run? Why not stay and work through this with the board like a rational adult? Vaughn turned to the cameras. Voss Industries is a valuable company with thousands of employees. We can't allow one person's mental instability to jeopardize their livelihoods. Sarah Chen stepped forward. Mr. Vaughn, can you explain why Artemis Group has been buying shares in Voss Industries through shell companies? Vaughn's smile didn't waver. I have no knowledge of Artemis Group's investment strategies. But you're on their advisory board, that's public record. Advisory positions don't give me insight into day-to-day operations. What about the forged financial documents? Jennifer called out. The ones David Chen used to justify removing Ms. Voss? Chen, standing behind Vaughn, went pale. Vaughn's smile finally cracked. I don't know what you're talking about. We have testimony, Jennifer said. Sworn statements from board members confirming the documents were fabricated. That's fraud, Mr. Vaughn, federal fraud. The reporters erupted with questions, all talking over each other. Vaughn tried to respond, tried to regain control of the narrative, but it was slipping away from him. Elena could see it in his eyes, the calculation, the realization that this wasn't going according to plan. Then the lobby doors opened again, and Ryan walked out. He looked like he'd been through a war. His shirt was torn, blood on his knuckles, a fresh bruise forming on his jaw. But he was walking under his own power, and in his hand was a USB drive. Elena's breath caught. The data clone. He'd gotten it. Ryan walked straight to Elena, handed her the drive. Servers downloaded, he said quietly. Everything Holloway had, every forged document, every email with Vaughn and Reeves. It's all there. Vaughn saw the drive, saw the way Elena's hand closed around it, and something in his expression shifted. Not anger, not fear. Something colder. Calculation. That's stolen property, Vaughn said. Mr. Cole just committed corporate espionage on camera. No, Ryan replied. I executed my duties as head of security by investigating suspicious activity in the building. The data I retrieved is evidence of ongoing fraud. I'm turning it over to the proper authorities. He pulled out his phone, made a call. Detective Morrison, it's Ryan Cole. Yeah, I've got that evidence we discussed. You want to send someone to collect it? Elena stared at him. You called the police? 2 hours ago. Told them I suspected corporate fraud at my workplace and requested an investigation. Ryan pocketed his phone. They're sending someone now. Should be here in 5 minutes. Vaughn's composure finally broke. You have no idea what you've done. No idea who you're fighting. Sure I do, Ryan said. I'm fighting a guy who tried to steal a company and got caught. Pretty simple from where I'm standing. Police cars pulled up, lights flashing. Detectives got out, walking toward the crowd with the kind of purpose that said this wasn't a social call. Sarah Chen and her photographer captured everything, the cameras rolling as the lead detective approached Elena. Ms. Voss? Detective Morrison, I understand you have evidence of corporate fraud you'd like to report? Elena held up the USB drive. Everything you need is here. Forged documents, emails coordinating the conspiracy, financial transfers. It's all documented. Morrison took the drive carefully, like it might explode. We'll need statements from everyone involved. That includes you, Mr. Vaughn. Vaughn said nothing. For the first time since this started, he looked like a man who'd lost control. The conference room doors exploded open. That wasn't what actually happened, but in the chaos of the moment, with reporters shouting questions and police radios crackling and Vaughn's carefully constructed narrative collapsing in real time, it felt like an explosion. The doors swung wide, and Marcus Reeves himself walked out. Elena recognized him from photos her father had kept in storage, pictures from before the falling out, before everything went wrong. He was older now, grayer, but he still had that same predatory confidence that her father had described. Behind him came two men in expensive suits who had lawyer written all over them. Reeves walked straight through the crowd like it didn't exist, his eyes locked on Elena. I was wondering when you'd figure it out, he said. The reporters went quiet, sensing something bigger was about to break. Elena met his gaze. You orchestrated all of this. The share purchases, Vaughn's coup, everything. This was your revenge. Revenge? Reeves laughed. You think this is about settling old scores? Elena, your father and I built an empire together. Then he decided he didn't need a partner anymore. Bought me out for pennies and took all the credit. I've spent 20 years building Artemis into something that matters. And now I'm taking back what should have been mine from the start. By destroying it. By recognizing its true value. Voss Industries is worth more in pieces than it is as a vanity project for a little girl playing CEO. Reeves stepped closer. Your father was brilliant, but he was sentimental. He built monuments when he should have built profit centers. I'm just correcting his mistakes. He trusted you, Elena said. You were his partner. And he betrayed that trust. It threw me out like garbage when I questioned his decisions. So yes, I waited. I built my resources. I positioned my pieces. And when he finally died, I made my move. Reeves smiled. The heart attack was convenient timing, I'll admit. The words hung in the air like smoke. Elena felt every reporter lean forward, every camera focus tighter. Detective Morrison's hand moved to his notepad. Are you saying you had something to do with James Voss's death? Morrison asked. Reeves's lawyers immediately stepped forward. My client is making no such statement. This conversation is over. But Reeves waved them off. Let them speculate. Let them investigate. They won't find anything because there's nothing to find. James Voss had a heart attack. It happens. The fact that it happened at a convenient moment for my business interests is just the universe balancing its accounts. You're admitting to conspiracy to commit fraud, Jennifer said. On camera, with police present. That's confession. I'm admitting to being a good investor who recognized an opportunity. Everything I've done has been legal. Aggressive, maybe. Ruthless, certainly. But legal. Reeves looked at Ryan. Unlike your security guard here who broke into private offices and stole confidential data. He retrieved evidence of a crime, Elena said. That's for the courts to decide, and I have very good lawyers. Reeves turned to leave, then paused. You want to fight this, Elena? Fine. I'll see you in court. We'll spend the next 5 years in litigation while Voss Industries bleeds money on legal fees and the stock price craters. Or you can be smart, sign Vaughn's contract, take your payout, and walk away rich. Your choice. He left before anyone could respond, his lawyers flanking him like bodyguards. The reporters erupted again, shouting questions at everyone within earshot. Detective Morrison was trying to establish order, but it was chaos, beautiful and terrible and completely out of control. Ryan appeared at Elena's side. You okay? No, but I'm still standing. She looked at the USB drive in Morrison's evidence bag. Did we get enough? I don't know. The data's solid, but if Reeves covered his tracks well enough, it might not connect directly to him. We might only get Vaughn and the board members. That's not enough. Reeves is the one behind all of this. Then we need more than digital evidence. We need someone who'll testify to his direct involvement. Elena thought about the men who'd sat in that conference room, who'd watched Vaughn try to force her out. Chen was owned by Vaughn. Holloway had too much to lose. The board members were cowards. Only Webb had found the courage to flip, and even that had taken immunity and desperation. But there was one person they hadn't considered, someone who'd been in that room, who'd seen everything, who might have information they hadn't thought to pursue. The guards, Elena said suddenly, the ones Vaughn brought in. They weren't just muscle, they were witnesses. If any of them documented what happened, if any of them kept records, Ryan's eyes lit up. The guy I tased, he went down hard, might have been pissed enough to keep documentation in case Vaughn tried to screw him on payment. You remember his name? No, but Derek can pull the building's security logs, cross-reference with the temp agency Vaughn used. Find out who those guys really were. Jennifer was already on her phone calling Derek. Elena watched the police start to cordon off the building entrance, saw Vaughn being escorted to a patrol car for questioning, saw her company transformed into a crime scene in the space of an hour. Sarah Chen approached with her photographer still rolling. Ms. Voss, one more question. What happens to Voss Industries now? Elena thought about her father, about the company he'd built from shipping containers and steel, about the legacy he'd left her to protect. She thought about the 4,000 employees who'd come to work tomorrow, not knowing if they'd still have jobs, about the clients who'd trusted the Voss name for decades. She thought about Reeves walking away with that smile, confident in his lawyers and his money and his belief that power always won. Now, Elena said, we fight. Not in court, where Reeves can drown us in motions and delays. We fight in the market. We prove that Voss Industries is worth more intact than in pieces. We show investors and clients and employees that this company has leadership worth following, and we make Reeves regret ever thinking he could destroy what my father built. How? By doing exactly what scared him enough to try this coup in the first place, by being better than he is. The camera kept rolling as Elena turned back to the building, to the 42 floors of glass and steel that represented everything she'd been fighting to save. Somewhere in there, among the forged documents and the betrayals and the shattered trust, was the company her father had loved enough to die for. She was going to make sure it lived. The call came at 4 a.m., 3 days after the standoff outside Voss Industries made every news outlet from Bloomberg to CNN. Elena was in Jennifer's apartment, surviving on coffee and rage, when her burner phone buzzed with an unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Then she remembered that unknown numbers had become the only way people could reach her now that her real phone was still somewhere in Vaughn's possession. Voss, a man's voice, rough and uncertain. Ms. Voss? My name's Tony Garrett. I was one of the security contractors working your building Thursday night. Elena sat up straighter. Go on. I heard about what happened, saw it on the news, and I got to thinking about some things that didn't sit right. Garrett paused. You got a minute to talk? I've got all the time you need. 20 minutes later, Elena, Ryan, and Jennifer were sitting in a 24-hour diner in Brooklyn across from a man who looked like he'd wrestled with his conscience and barely won. Tony Garrett was maybe 40, built like he'd done manual labor most of his life, with the kind of weathered face that came from too many bad decisions and not enough sleep. He put a phone on the table between them. I recorded everything, Garrett said. From the moment we got hired to the moment your guy here dropped me with a taser. Company policy, sort of. If a job goes sideways and the client tries to deny payment, you need proof you were there. Ryan leaned forward. You recorded the boardroom? Audio only. I was standing outside the door, heard the whole thing. Garrett pushed the phone toward Elena. The stuff that Vaughn guy said, the threats, the forged documents, all of it's on here. And the conversation after you left, when they were figuring out how to spin the story. That's on here too. Elena picked up the phone like it might shatter. Why are you giving this to us? Because I got a daughter. She's 16, wants to go to college, be something better than what I am. And I keep thinking about what kind of world I'm building for her. If guys like Vaughn can just take whatever they want and get away with it. Garrett looked at his hands. I've done a lot of jobs I'm not proud of. But this one, I don't know. Something about locking a woman in a room and threatening her. That crossed a line for me. Jennifer was already pulling out her laptop. Mister? Garrett, I'm going to need you to make an official statement, on the record, sworn testimony that can be used in court. I know, that's why I'm here. He met Elena's eyes. But I need something from you first. What? Protection. Vaughn's got reach, and the guys I worked with aren't exactly choir boys. If word gets out, I flipped. I'm a liability. Liabilities tend to disappear. I can offer witness protection through the DA's office, Jennifer said. Get you and your daughter relocated, new identities if necessary. Garrett shook his head. That's for later if this goes federal. Right now I need security, real security, not government promises. Ryan spoke up. I can arrange that. I've got contacts from the Marines, guys who do private protection. They'll keep you safe until this is resolved. Your word on that? My word. Garrett nodded slowly. Okay, then let's do this. They spent the next 4 hours in that diner while Garrett told them everything. The job posting he'd answered on a contractor message board. The meeting with Vaughn's people at a hotel in Midtown where they'd been briefed on the security situation at Voss Industries. The instructions to make sure Elena stayed in the conference room until she signed the contract. The explicit orders not to harm her, but to prevent her escape by any means necessary. And then the part that made Elena's blood run cold. There was another guy there, Garrett said. Not part of the security team. Older, expensive suit. Had this way of talking that made everyone else shut up and listen. Vaughn called him Marcus. He was the one giving the real orders. Marcus Reeves, Elena said. Yeah, that sounds right. He said something I remember clear as day. Said, when Elena signs that contract, we move immediately. I want every asset liquidated within 48 hours. The vultures are already circling, and I promise them fresh meat. Jennifer stopped typing. He said that exactly. Word for word, stuck with me because it sounded like something from a movie. Except it was real, and I was part of it. Ryan was on his phone, texting Derek. If Reeves was directly involved in planning the coup, that ties him to the conspiracy. No more plausible deniability. We'll need corroboration, Jennifer said. Garrett's testimony is strong, but a defense lawyer will tear him apart if he's the only witness. We need someone else who was in that hotel meeting. There were 6 of us, Garrett said. Me and 5 other contractors. But I don't know if any of them will talk. They got paid, probably trying to forget this ever happened. Derek can track them down, Ryan said. Pull the contractor records, find their real identities. Some of them might flip for immunity. Elena listened to them plan, watched them build the case piece by piece, and felt something shift inside her. 3 days ago, she'd been alone in a locked room with her company being stolen out from under her. Now she had allies, evidence, momentum. Not enough to guarantee victory, but enough to fight. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Stop now, or your security guard's daughter learns what it's like to lose a parent. Elena showed the message to Ryan. His jaw tightened. They're escalating, he said quietly. They're scared, Jennifer corrected. Scared people make threats. Smart people lawyer up and negotiate. She looked at Garrett. We need that recording submitted to the DA today, before Vaughn realizes you're cooperating. Already ahead of you, Garrett pulled out a USB drive. I made copies, one for you, one for the DA, one in a safety deposit box in case something happens to me. They left the diner as the sun was coming up, painting the city in shades of gray and gold that felt like a promise. Ryan drove Garrett to a safe house his Marine contacts had set up, while Elena and Jennifer headed to the DA's office to file the evidence. The DA for Manhattan's Financial Crimes Division was a woman named Patricia Torres, who looked like she'd been dealing with white-collar criminals long enough to have developed a permanent expression of skepticism. She listened to Jennifer's pitch, reviewed Garrett's recording, and spent 15 minutes on the phone with someone before turning back to them. This is good, Torres said. Really good. But it's also complicated. Vaughn's already claiming this was a legitimate board action to remove an unstable CEO. Reeves is insulated behind corporate structures that make direct prosecution difficult. And your security guard committed breaking and entering to obtain that USB drive, which means a defense attorney will argue the evidence is tainted. The evidence was obtained during a lawful security investigation, Jennifer said. Cole had reason to believe a crime was in progress and acted within the scope of his employment. That's a nice argument. It might even work. But it'll take months to litigate, And in the meantime, Vaughn and Reeves will be systematically destroying any remaining evidence. Torres leaned back in her chair. What you need is leverage, something that makes them want to settle before this goes to trial. Like what? Elena asked. Like proving they've committed crimes beyond corporate fraud, something federal, something that gets the FBI involved instead of just local prosecutors. Torres pulled up a file on her computer. I've been looking into Artemis Group since your story broke. They're good at hiding their tracks, but there are patterns. Shell companies in the Cayman Islands, unexplained cash transfers, the kind of financial maneuvering that suggests money laundering or tax evasion. Elena felt a spark of hope. You think you can prove that? I think if I subpoena their financial records and put a forensic accountant on it, we'll find something. But subpoenas take time, and Reeves will fight every step of the way. Torres met her eyes. Unless you can give me probable cause, real, actionable evidence that links Artemis to illegal activity. What kind of evidence? The kind that shows intent, emails, recorded conversations, witness testimony from someone inside the organization who can testify to criminal conspiracy. Torres closed the file. You get me that, I can move fast. Federal warrants, asset freezes, the works. Without it, this is just a corporate dispute that'll drag through civil court for years. They left the DA's office with a mission and no clear path to accomplish it. Jennifer drove while Elena stared out the window, her mind racing through possibilities. We need someone inside Artemis, Elena said. Someone who knows where the bodies are buried. That's going to be hard to find, Jennifer said. Private equity firms run on loyalty and fear. Nobody talks because everyone's got too much to lose. Everyone except the people who've already lost. Elena pulled out her phone, started scrolling through old contacts. My father kept files on everyone he did business with, including Marcus Reeves. If Reeves has enemies, people he screwed over on the way up, they might be willing to help take him down. That's a long shot. It's the only shot we have. Elena spent the next 2 days making calls to people her father had mentioned in old journals, former business partners, competitors, anyone who'd crossed paths with Marcus Reeves and lived to regret it. Most of the calls went nowhere. Some people had died. Others had moved on, didn't want to revisit old grudges. A few hung up the moment she mentioned Reeves's name. But on the afternoon of the third day, she got a hit. His name was Daniel Cross, and he'd been Reeves's business partner at Artemis for 5 years before getting forced out in what he described as the most brutal corporate backstabbing I've ever witnessed. He agreed to meet at a bar in the financial district, neutral ground, where they could talk without attracting attention. Cross was in his 50s, expensive suit that had seen better days, the kind of careful grooming that said he was trying to maintain appearances on a shrinking budget. He ordered scotch and got straight to business. You want to destroy Marcus Reeves, Cross said. Why should I help you? Because he destroyed you first, Elena replied, and because helping me means you get to watch him fall. Cross smiled without humor. Revenge is a hell of a motivator, but it doesn't pay my bills. How much do you need? Enough to make testifying against one of the most vindictive bastards in private equity worth the risk. Cross named a figure that made Elena wince, but not refuse. I'll pay it, in exchange for everything you know about Artemis's illegal operations. The shell companies, the money laundering, any securities fraud or tax evasion you witnessed. And I need it documented. Emails, financial records, anything that can survive a courtroom challenge. I kept copies of everything when Marcus forced me out. Insurance policy in case he tried to come after me later. Cross finished his scotch, ordered another. I've got emails showing he instructed accountants to misrepresent asset values to inflate Artemis's portfolio performance. I've got recordings of conference calls where he discussed bribing foreign officials to secure deals. And I've got bank records showing he funneled money through shell companies to avoid paying taxes on capital gains. That's enough for federal charges, Jennifer said. She'd been quiet until now, taking notes. Securities fraud, tax evasion, foreign corrupt practices violations. We give this to the FBI, Reeves is done. Maybe, Cross said. Or maybe his lawyers make it disappear. Marcus has friends in high places, people who owe him favors, people who don't want their own dirty laundry exposed if he goes down. Then we make it public, Elena said. Release the evidence to the press before the FBI can bury it. Let the court of public opinion force their hand. Cross looked at her with something like respect. You're more ruthless than your father was. He always tried to play nice, thought there was honor in business. Took me a long time to convince him Marcus needed to be cut loose, and even then he paid him fair value instead of just forcing him out. My father's dead, Elena said flatly, and I'm starting to think Marcus had something to do with that. So no, I'm not playing nice. I'm playing to win. Cross slid a USB drive across the table. Everything you need is on here. Copies are in 3 different safety deposit boxes, so don't get any ideas about making me disappear once you have what you want. I'm not Marcus Reeves. No. But power changes people. Just remember that when you're sitting in your corner office deciding who lives and who dies in your corporate kingdom. Elena took the drive. If this leads to his arrest, you'll get your payment. Full amount, wired to whatever account you want. I'll hold you to that. Cross stood to leave, then paused. One more thing. Marcus has been planning this for a long time. 20 years, ever since your father forced him out. He's patient, methodical, and he doesn't leave loose ends. You think you've won because you have evidence. But Marcus thinks 10 moves ahead. Whatever you're planning, he's already prepared for it. Then I guess I better think 11 moves ahead, Cross laughed. Yeah, good luck with that. He left, and Elena sat staring at the USB drive like it might explode. Jennifer was already on her phone, setting up a meeting with Patricia Torres for first thing tomorrow morning. Ryan appeared from the bar's entrance, where he'd been watching the meeting from a distance. He slid into the seat Cross had vacated. You trust him? Ryan asked. No, but I don't need to trust him. I just need his evidence to be real. And if it's a setup? If Reeves sent him to feed you false information that'll blow up in your face when you present it to the FBI? Elena had considered that. Then we verify everything on this drive before we use it. Derek can authenticate the emails, confirm they match server timestamps and metadata. The financial records can be cross-referenced with public filings. If anything doesn't check out, we don't use it. That'll take time. We have 3 days before Vaughn's legal team files a motion to dismiss the injunction. After that, they can start liquidating assets. Elena pocketed the drive. Derek works fast. We'll have verification by tomorrow morning. Ryan's phone buzzed. He checked it, and his expression went dark. What? Elena asked. Sarah's school. She didn't show up today. My sister said she dropped her off at the front entrance like always, watched her go inside. But the attendance office says she never made it to first period. Elena felt ice in her veins. Reeves. I need to go. Now. Ryan was already moving toward the door. Wait. If Reeves has her, going in blind gets you both killed. Let me make a call. Elena dialed Patricia Torres. We have a situation. Marcus Reeves just kidnapped a 10-year-old girl to pressure us into dropping the case. I need federal marshals at the following address immediately. Torres didn't hesitate. I'll make the call, but Elena, if you're wrong about this, if it turns out the girl just skipped school, I'm not wrong. Reeves sent me a text 3 days ago threatening Ryan's daughter. Now she's missing. That's not coincidence. Okay, give me the address. Elena relayed Sarah's school location, then hung up and looked at Ryan. His hands were shaking, jaw clenched so tight she could see the muscles standing out. They won't hurt her, Elena said, trying to convince herself as much as him. She's leverage. They need her alive to control you. You don't know that. You don't know what they'll do. You're right, I don't. But I know if you go charging in there without a plan, you'll both end up dead. So we wait for the marshals, we coordinate with law enforcement, and we get her back the smart way. Ryan looked at her with something between fury and desperation. The smart way. While my daughter's terrified somewhere with people who already tried to take her once? Yes. Because the alternative is you dead, and her still missing. Elena grabbed his arm. I know you want to go. I know every instinct you have is screaming at you to find her right now. But you're a Marine. You know how this works. You go in tactical, not emotional. He pulled away from her, paced to the window, came back. If they hurt her, they won't. Because we're going to find them first. Elena's phone rang. Torres. The marshals are mobilizing. But Elena, we have a problem. I just got word that Marcus Reeves boarded a private jet at Teterboro 40 minutes ago. Flight plan filed for the Cayman Islands. He's running. He took Sarah with him? We don't know. The manifest lists him as the only passenger, but that doesn't mean anything. He could have her on the plane. Ryan grabbed the phone from Elena's hand. Where's the plane now? Still on the ground at Teterboro, fueling for the flight. We can have the marshals intercept before takeoff, but we need probable cause to board a private aircraft. You have probable cause. Kidnapping a minor, conspiracy to commit fraud, flight risk, pick one. I need evidence, not accusations. If we board that plane and Sarah's not on it, Reeves sues for false arrest and everything we've built collapses. Elena took the phone back. Then we give you evidence. Derek, can you pull security footage from Sarah's school? Ryan was already dialing. On it. They worked fast. Derek hacked the school's security system, pulled footage from the front entrance, and sent it to Torres's email within 10 minutes. The video showed Sarah entering the building at 7:42 a.m. It also showed her leaving through a side exit at 7:58 a.m. with a man in a dark suit who had his hand on her shoulder. That's not voluntary, Torres said. That's abduction. I'm authorizing the intercept. She hung up. Elena and Ryan ran for Jennifer's car, breaking every traffic law getting to Teterboro Airport. By the time they arrived, federal marshals had surrounded Reeves's jet, and news helicopters were circling overhead. Reeves stood on the tarmac in handcuffs, his lawyers shouting about unlawful detention and civil rights violations. But Sarah wasn't there. Ryan went straight to the lead marshal. Where's my daughter? The plane was empty except for Reeves and the pilot. No sign of the girl. He knows where she is. Ryan started toward Reeves, but two marshals blocked his path. Elena approached Reeves instead. He was still wearing that same confident smile, even with his hands cuffed behind his back. Marcus, Elena said, where is she? I have no idea what you're talking about. You kidnapped a 10-year-old girl. Federal crime. You're looking at 20 years minimum. I didn't kidnap anyone. I was leaving the country for a business meeting. Perfectly legal. The security footage shows your employee taking Sarah from school. What employee? I don't know anything about that. Reeves leaned closer, lowered his voice so only Elena could hear. But hypothetically, if someone did take the girl, and if that someone was waiting for instructions, those instructions would never come if I'm in custody. Food for thought. Elena felt cold rage wash over her. You're using her as a dead man's switch. I'm not using anyone. I'm simply explaining cause and effect. I go down, things happen that can't be undone. Or you drop the case, sign Vaughn's contract, let me liquidate Voss Industries peacefully, and the girl shows up at her school tomorrow morning, unharmed and with a fun story about how she got lost and a nice man helped her find her way home. That's extortion. That's business, Reeves smiled. Your move, Elena. Ryan had heard enough. He broke past the marshals, grabbed Reeves by his expensive collar, and slammed him against the side of the jet. Where's my daughter? I don't know, Reeves said, still smiling even with Ryan's hands around his throat. And even if I did, I wouldn't tell you. Because the moment you have her back, you have no reason to deal. This is basic negotiation. Patricia Torres appeared, pulled Ryan off before he could do something that would land him in jail. Mr. Cole, step back. Now. Ryan stepped back, but his eyes never left Reeves. Torres turned to the marshals. Take him in. Conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted flight, obstruction of justice. We'll add kidnapping when we find the girl. As they loaded Reeves into a federal vehicle, his lawyer leaned in close to Elena. My client will agree to release the location of the child in exchange for complete immunity on all charges and the immediate dropping of your case against Artemis Group. Not a chance, Elena said. Then I hope you're prepared to explain to the media why you valued your company over a little girl's life. The lawyer walked away, leaving Elena standing on the tarmac with the horrible weight of an impossible choice. Ryan was beside her, his voice hollow. He's not bluffing. If we don't deal, Sarah disappears. If we do deal, Reeves walks and we lose everything. There has to be another way. There isn't. You know there isn't. Ryan looked at her, and she saw something break behind his eyes. Sign the contract, Elena. Give him the company. Just get my daughter back. Ryan? Sign it, please. Elena thought about her father, about Voss Industries, about 4,000 employees and 20 years of legacy. She thought about everything she'd fought for in the last week, all the risks and sacrifices and narrow escapes. Then she thought about a 10-year-old girl, alone and scared, waiting for rescue that might never come. Okay, Elena said quietly. Get me the contract. Jennifer brought the contract to the airport in a leather folder that felt like it weighed 100 pounds. Elena held it in her hands, staring at the signature line that would end everything her father had built, and realized she was shaking. You don't have to do this, Jennifer said quietly. Yes, I do. Ryan stood 10 feet away, phone pressed to his ear, talking to his sister, to Sarah's school, to anyone who might have information. Every few seconds he'd glance at Elena, and she'd see the desperate hope in his eyes that made her stomach turn. Patricia Torres approached with Reeves's lawyer, a thin man named Bachman, who had the kind of face that suggested he'd sold his soul so long ago, he'd forgotten he ever had one. My client is prepared to provide the location of Sarah Cole immediately upon Ms. Voss's execution of the contract, Bachman said, as well as a full withdrawal of all legal proceedings against Artemis Group and Mr. Reeves personally. And the immunity agreement? Jennifer asked. Complete immunity from all criminal and civil prosecution related to the Voss Industries matter. Non-negotiable. Elena looked at Torres. Can you even agree to that? I can recommend it to the federal prosecutor. But Elena, once you sign that contract, we lose all leverage. If Reeves doesn't follow through on releasing Sarah's location, we have no way to compel him. So I'm supposed to trust him? You're supposed to make an impossible choice. Torres looked at Ryan, then back at Elena. I can't tell you what to do. This isn't a legal question anymore. Elena opened the folder. The contract was exactly as she remembered from that boardroom a week ago. Temporary reassignment of operational control, 60-day audit period, effective immediately. She'd be CEO in name only, while Vaughn and Reeves dismantled everything. Her father's company, her legacy. 4,000 jobs, 20 years of reputation. All of it, gone. She picked up the pen Bachman offered her. Wait. Ryan's voice cut through the moment. He walked over, took the pen from her hand. Don't. Ryan, your daughter is my responsibility, not yours. I'm not letting you destroy your life to save mine. She's 10 years old. She's innocent. The company is just money and buildings. No, it's not. It's your father's legacy. It's everything he worked for. Everything he trusted you to protect. Ryan's voice cracked. Sarah would hate me if she knew I let you give that up for her. She'd understand. Maybe, but I wouldn't. Ryan took the contract from Elena's hands, turned to Bachman. Tell Reeves we're not dealing. Do your worst. Bachman's expression didn't change. Then the girl's fate is on your conscience. He walked away. Torres swore quietly. Jennifer looked like she wanted to argue but couldn't find the words. Elena grabbed Ryan's arm. What are you doing? What I should have done from the start. Trusting that we're smarter than him. Ryan pulled out his phone, called Derek. You still tracking Reeves's phone activity? Derek's voice came through on speaker. Yeah, but he's been dark since this morning. No calls? No texts? Nothing. What about before this morning? Let me check. Keyboard sounds. Last call was at 7:32 a.m. to a burner phone. Lasted 18 seconds. Then nothing. Can you track where that burner phone is now? If it's still on, yeah, give me a minute. More typing. Got it. Phone stationary, has been for the last 6 hours. Location is showing an address in Yonkers, some kind of industrial building. Ryan was already moving toward Jennifer's car. Send me the exact coordinates. Now. Elena followed him. You think that's where they have her? It's the only lead we've got. Either we find her there, or we don't find her at all. Torres caught up to them. I can have the marshals meet you there. 10 minutes, full tactical team. No time. Every minute we wait is another minute something goes wrong. Ryan got in the driver's seat. Call them in as backup, but I'm not waiting. Elena slid into the passenger seat. Jennifer got in back, already on her phone coordinating with Torres and the marshals. They were on the highway before anyone could argue. The address Derek sent led them to a warehouse district in Yonkers, the kind of neighborhood where businesses went to die quietly. Abandoned factories, rusted chain-link fences, buildings with broken windows that stared out like empty eyes. The specific building was 3 stories of brick and decay, with a loading dock and a single steel door. Ryan parked a block away. You two stay here. I go in alone. Like hell, Elena said. Elena, if they have lookouts, if this goes bad, then it goes bad for all of us. I'm not sitting in a car while you walk into an ambush. Jennifer checked her phone. Marshals are 7 minutes out. We should wait. 7 minutes is too long. Ryan pulled a handgun from under the seat, checked the magazine. Elena stared at it. Where did you get that? My trunk. I don't usually carry, but after the last week, I made an exception. He looked at her. Last chance to stay in the car. Elena opened her door. Let's go get your daughter. They approached the building from the side, using abandoned cars and dumpsters for cover. The place looked dead. No movement in the windows, no vehicles parked nearby. But Derek's tracking showed the burner phone was still inside, still active. The steel door was locked. Ryan worked it with his screwdriver, the same one he'd used to break them out of Voss Industries a week ago. The lock clicked, and they slipped inside to darkness and the smell of mold. The interior was a maze of old machinery and storage crates, shadows everywhere. Ryan moved forward with the gun raised, clearing corners like he'd done this 1,000 times before. Elena stayed close, Jennifer behind her, all of them trying to breathe quietly. A sound from above. Footsteps on metal echoing through the empty building. Ryan pointed up, second floor. They found a staircase, metal grating that creaked with every step. Elena's heart hammered so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. The second floor opened into what had once been office space. Cubicles stripped of equipment, wiring hanging from the ceiling, water damage staining the walls. And in the center of the room, tied to a chair with duct tape over her mouth, was Sarah. She saw Ryan and her eyes went wide with relief and terror. He ran to her, started pulling the tape off, working the ropes. Are you hurt? Ryan asked, his hand shaking as he checked her over. Sarah shook her head, tears streaming down her face. It's okay. I've got you. You're safe now. That's when Elena heard the click of a gun being racked behind them. I wouldn't say safe exactly. They turned. A man stood in the doorway, maybe 30, with the kind of casual posture that said he'd done this before and wasn't particularly worried about how it would end. He held a pistol pointed at Ryan's back. You're supposed to be signing a contract right now, the man said. Instead, you're here, screwing up a perfectly good plan. Who are you? Elena asked. Nobody important, just a guy who gets paid to make sure certain tasks are completed. He gestured with the gun. Step away from the girl. Ryan didn't move. You're going to have to shoot me first. That can be arranged. The moment stretched, electric with violence waiting to happen. Elena could see Ryan calculating angles, distances, the probability of getting Sarah to safety before bullets started flying. She could see him reaching the same conclusion she had. There was no good option here. Then Sarah moved. She was still tied to the chair, but she'd worked one hand partially free during Ryan's rescue attempt. Now she grabbed the chair leg and swung her weight sideways, toppling herself and the chair directly into the gunman's path. He stumbled, gun swinging away from Ryan for just a second. That's all the time Ryan needed. He crossed the distance in 2 steps, grabbed the man's gun hand, twisted hard enough that Elena heard something crack. The gun clattered to the floor. They went down together, Ryan on top, delivering strikes with brutal efficiency until the man stopped moving. Jennifer already had Sarah free of the ropes, was checking her over while Elena grabbed the dropped gun. We need to go, Jennifer said. Now, before anyone else shows up. They ran. Down the stairs, through the warehouse, out into daylight that felt too bright after the darkness inside. Federal marshals were pulling up as they emerged, vehicles surrounding the building, agents with rifles taking positions. Torres was out of her car first. Is she okay? She's fine, Ryan said, holding Sarah tight enough to make her squeak. The guy who took her is upstairs, second floor. Needs medical attention. He alive? Unfortunately. Torres directed the marshals inside, then turned to Elena. You just compromised a federal operation, went in without authorization, potentially contaminated evidence. I don't care, Elena said. Sarah's safe. That's all that matters. Torres looked like she wanted to argue, then just shook her head. Get out of here, all of you. I'll handle the cleanup. They were back in Jennifer's car, halfway to the city, before anyone spoke. Thank you, Ryan said quietly. He was in the back seat with Sarah, who hadn't let go of him since they'd left the warehouse. For not signing that contract. For trusting we'd find her. I didn't trust anything, Elena said. I was terrified the entire time. But you did it anyway. That's what matters. Sarah spoke up, her voice small and rough from the tape. Who was that man? Someone who made very bad choices, Ryan said, and who's going to jail for a very long time. Did you hurt him bad? Yes, sweetie, I did. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Good. Ryan kissed the top of her head, and Elena saw his hands were still shaking. The gunman talked within 2 hours of being brought in. His name was Keith Morris, and he'd worked for Artemis Group's security division for 3 years, handling what he called sensitive asset protection. He'd been hired by Reeves personally to grab Sarah and hold her until instructed otherwise. The orders were simple. If Reeves called with a code word, release her. If Reeves didn't call by midnight, make her disappear permanently. Patricia Torres delivered this information to Elena, Ryan, and Jennifer in her office, while Sarah sat in a waiting room with a child psychologist and a federal agent who specialized in trauma cases. Morris is cooperating fully in exchange for a reduced sentence, Torres said. He's given us names, locations, documentation of other jobs Artemis hired him for. Most of it's legal, barely, but there's enough gray area to make a RICO case if we push it. What about Reeves? Elena asked. He's claiming he knew nothing about the kidnapping. Says Morris acted independently, unauthorized. His lawyers are already building a defense based on plausible deniability. That's garbage, Ryan said. Morris called Reeves's phone. Derek has the records. Called a burner phone we can't prove Reeves owned. The number's not registered to him, not linked to any of his accounts. A good lawyer will argue it's circumstantial at best. Elena felt exhaustion settling into her bones. So he walks. Maybe. Or maybe we flip Morris harder, get him to testify that Reeves gave explicit orders to kidnap Sarah. That's conspiracy to commit kidnapping, federal crime, 20 years minimum. Torres leaned back in her chair. But that takes time. Weeks, maybe months of negotiation. And in the meantime, Vaughn's still pushing to liquidate Voss Industries. What's the status on the injunction? Holding for now. But the judge wants a full hearing next week to determine if it should remain in place. You'll need to present evidence that the attempted coup was illegal, that Vaughn and the board acted in bad faith, that keeping you as CEO is in the company's best interest. Jennifer pulled out her laptop. We have Webb's testimony, Garrett's recording, the data Ryan pulled from Holloway's server, and now crosses evidence of Artemis's illegal operations. That should be enough. Should be, but Vaughn's lawyers will challenge every piece. They'll argue Webb was coerced, that Garrett's recording is inadmissible because he was working illegally as a contractor, that the server data was obtained through unauthorized access. Torres looked at Elena. You're going to be fighting this battle for a long time. Are you prepared for that? Elena thought about the last week, the locked conference room, the escape through tunnels, the standoff outside her building. She thought about Ryan taking a taser for her, about Sarah tied to a chair in a warehouse, about her father's company teetering on the edge of collapse. She thought about the moment she'd almost signed that contract, almost given up everything to save one life. Yeah, Elena said. I'm prepared. The hearing was scheduled for the following Monday in federal court, downtown Manhattan. Elena spent the weekend preparing with Jennifer, going over testimony, reviewing evidence, practicing responses to every possible challenge Vaughn's lawyers might raise. Ryan took Sarah home and spent 2 days just being her father, making sure she felt safe, that the nightmare of that warehouse faded into something they could both survive. He called Elena once, Sunday night, to tell her he wouldn't be at the hearing. Sarah needs me here, Ryan said. I can't leave her right now. I understand. You're going to win this, you know that, right? I don't know anything anymore. Trust yourself the way I trusted you to find Sarah. You're stronger than Vaughn, smarter than Reeves. They might have money and lawyers, but you've got something they don't. What's that? People who believe in you. The courtroom was packed. Press in the gallery, investors watching from the back row, employees from Voss Industries who'd taken the day off to see what happened to their future. Elena sat at the plaintiff's table with Jennifer, watching Vaughn arrive with a team of 4 lawyers who looked like they billed $1,000 an hour. Reeves wasn't there. He was still in federal custody, fighting his own battles, but his shadow hung over everything. The judge was a woman in her 60s named Helen Martinez, who had a reputation for not tolerating nonsense from either side. She reviewed the preliminary filings, then looked up over her glasses at both tables. This court will determine whether the injunction preventing Voss Industries Board from taking action to remove Elena Voss as CEO should remain in place pending full trial. Ms. Park, you represent the plaintiff. Jennifer stood. Yes, Your Honor. Proceed. Jennifer laid out the case methodically. Webb's testimony about Vaughn's coercion, Garrett's recording of the boardroom threats, the data from Holloway's server showing forged documents, Cross's evidence linking Artemis Group to Vaughn's conspiracy. It was devastating, professional, exactly what Elena needed. Vaughn's lead attorney, a man named Hendricks, countered each point. Webb was unreliable, motivated by immunity. Garrett was a criminal testifying to reduce his own sentence. The server data was tainted by illegal access. Cross was a disgruntled former employee with an axe to grind. Back and forth they went, legal arguments piling on top of each other until Elena's head spun. She watched Judge Martinez take notes, ask pointed questions, give nothing away about which way she was leaning. Then Hendricks dropped his bomb. Your Honor, even if we accept all of the plaintiff's evidence as legitimate, which we don't, the fundamental question remains. Is Elena Voss capable of running this company? She's 29 years old, has been CEO for only 18 months, and made a series of high-risk financial decisions that put Voss Industries in a precarious position. The board's concern about her judgment, regardless of how they expressed it, was legitimate. That's a lie, Elena said before Jennifer could stop her. Judge Martinez looked at her. Ms. Voss, you'll have a chance to testify. Right now, please remain silent. I'm sorry, Your Honor, but I can't. Because that's the core of their argument, that I'm incompetent, and it's not true. Elena stood, ignoring Jennifer's hand trying to pull her back down. Every decision I made was backed by market research, financial analysis, and strategic planning. I grew revenue 40%. I acquired 2 competitors that strengthened our market position. I invested in automation that cut costs and improved efficiency. Those aren't reckless decisions, they're smart business. Ms. Voss, Judge Martinez began, my father built Voss Industries from nothing. He took risks that other people called crazy. He made decisions that his board questioned, and he succeeded because he understood something that Vaughn and Reeves never will. A company isn't just a collection of assets to be liquidated. It's people, employees who depend on their paychecks, clients who trust our word, partners who invest in our future. You don't build that by playing it safe. You build it by being willing to fight when everyone else wants to quit. The courtroom was silent. Judge Martinez studied Elena for a long moment. Are you finished? The judge asked. Yes, Your Honor. Sorry. Don't apologize for passion, but next time, wait until you're called to testify. Martinez turned to Hendricks. Counselor, you've argued that Ms. Voss is incompetent. Do you have any evidence beyond the forged documents that your own clients created? Hendricks hesitated. The board's professional judgment. The board that conspired to force her out through illegal means? That board's judgment? Martinez closed her file. I've heard enough. The injunction remains in place. Ms. Voss retains her position as CEO pending full trial on the fraud charges. This court is adjourned. The gavel came down, and Elena felt something break loose in her chest. Not quite relief, not quite victory, but close enough. Jennifer grabbed her arm. You realize you just went off script in federal court? I know. Did it work? This time, don't make a habit of it. The trial took 6 weeks. Evidence was presented, witnesses testified, lawyers argued points of law that made Elena's brain hurt. Vaughn's defense slowly crumbled as each piece of the conspiracy was exposed. Chen admitted to forging documents. Holloway confessed to participating in the coup under duress. The board members, Portman and Lassiter, took plea deals in exchange for testimony against Vaughn, and through it all, Marcus Reeves sat in federal detention, fighting extradition charges while the FBI built their case for conspiracy, fraud, and kidnapping. The verdict came down on a Tuesday afternoon. Guilty on all charges for Gregory Vaughn. Conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted corporate takeover through illegal means, extortion, witness intimidation. The judge sentenced him to 12 years in federal prison. Reeves's trial was still pending, but the evidence was overwhelming. Morris had flipped completely, testifying to direct orders from Reeves to kidnap Sarah. Combined with Cross's financial evidence and the data from Holloway's server, the federal prosecutor felt confident about conviction. Elena stood outside the courthouse after Vaughn's sentencing, watching news crews pack up their equipment. Sarah Chen from the Times approached for one last interview. "Ms. Voss, you've won. Your company is secure. Your enemies are going to prison. How does it feel?" Elena thought about that question. Expensive, exhausting, and worth every second. What's next for Voss Industries? Rebuilding. We lost time, money, and trust during this fight. Getting that back won't be easy, but we're going to do it the right way, with transparency and integrity, the way my father would have wanted. And personally, what's next for you? Sleep. About a week's worth, Sarah smiled. One final question. Would you do it all again? If you could go back to that night in the boardroom, knowing what you know now, would you still fight? Elena looked at the courthouse behind her, at the building that represented justice, however imperfect. She thought about the price she'd paid, the risks she'd taken, the people who'd stood with her when standing alone seemed impossible. "Yeah," she said, "I would." 3 months later, Elena sat in her office on the 42nd floor of Voss Industries, reviewing quarterly reports that finally showed positive trends. Revenue was recovering, stock price was climbing. The clients who'd fled during the scandal were slowly returning, convinced that the company had survived its trial by fire. There was a knock on her door. Ryan Cole stood in the doorway, wearing a suit instead of his security uniform. "You got a minute?" he asked. "For you?" "Always." "Come in." Ryan sat across from her desk, looked around the office. "Feels different from the last time I was in here. Less hostile takeover, more actual business." "Yeah, we've made some improvements." Elena closed her laptop. "How's Sarah?" "Better. Still has nightmares sometimes, but the therapist says that's normal. She asked about you the other day, wanted to know if you'd come to dinner sometime." "I'd like that." "Good, because I've been meaning to talk to you about something." Ryan pulled an envelope from his jacket. "This is my resignation, effective 2 weeks from today." Elena felt her stomach drop. "What? Why?" "Because I can't work security anymore. Not after everything that happened. Every time I walk through this building, I see that conference room, that night, and I can't do it." "Ryan, you saved my life. You saved this company. You're not just security, you're—" "I know. That's why I'm leaving security." He pulled out a second paper from the envelope. "This is my application for your Director of Operations position, the one Marcus Webb used to have before he took the plea deal." Elena stared at him. "You want to run operations?" "I want to help build something worth protecting. Spent 8 years in the Marines destroying things, 3 years here standing watch over things. Time to actually create something." Ryan met her eyes. "But only if you think I can do it. I don't have an MBA or a fancy resume. What I have is a decade of experience managing complex logistics under pressure and a pretty good understanding of what this company needs." Elena didn't hesitate. "You're hired. When can you start?" 2 weeks. Need to train my replacement on the security team first." "Fair enough." She stood, offered her hand. "Welcome to the executive team, Mr. Cole." He shook it, and they both laughed at the absurdity of formalizing something that had been forged in locked rooms and federal custody. "One condition," Ryan said. "You have to promise me something." "What?" "Promise me you'll never lock yourself in a conference room alone with people you don't trust, because I'm not sure I can survive another rescue mission." "Deal. And you promise me something too." "What's that?" "Promise me that if this ever happens again, if someone tries to take what we've built, you'll fight just as hard as you did for Sarah. Because that's what this place needs. People who care enough to fight." Ryan nodded. "That's a promise I can keep." The news about Marcus Reeves's conviction came 6 months later. Federal jury, unanimous verdict on all counts. Conspiracy, fraud, kidnapping, money laundering, tax evasion. The judge sentenced him to 32 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. Elena didn't attend the sentencing. She was too busy running her company, making the decisions that would shape its future, proving that her father's trust hadn't been misplaced. But she did send Reeves a letter, delivered through his attorney. It was short, just 3 lines. "My father once told me that the measure of a person isn't what they build, but what they leave behind." You left behind nothing but wreckage. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure his legacy survives yours. Elena Voss. She never received a reply. A year after the coup attempt, Voss Industries held its annual shareholder meeting. The room was packed, every seat filled with investors who'd stuck with the company through scandal and uncertainty. Elena stood at the podium, looking out at faces that ranged from skeptical to supportive. "A year ago," she began, "this company almost died. Not from market forces or economic conditions, but from betrayal by people we trusted. Some of you in this room thought we wouldn't survive. I don't blame you. There were nights I thought the same thing." She paused, let the words settle. "But we did survive, because we remembered something that people like Marcus Reeves and Gregory Vaughn never understood. A company is more than its quarterly earnings. It's the people who show up every day believing their work matters. It's the clients who trust us with their business, even when cheaper options exist. It's the community of employees and partners and stakeholders who decide that what we're building together is worth fighting for." Elena looked at Ryan, sitting in the front row next to Jennifer, looked at the employees who'd attended to see if their CEO would acknowledge what they'd endured. "This year, we grew revenue by 38%. We acquired a competitor that strengthened our market position. We invested in our people with better benefits and higher wages, and we did all of it while fighting off a hostile takeover and criminal conspiracy. I'm proud of those numbers, but I'm more proud of the fact that we're still here, still fighting, still building something that matters." The room was silent. Then someone started clapping, then another person, then everyone. A standing ovation that felt like vindication and hope and defiance all mixed together. Elena stood at that podium, watching people applaud the company her father had built and she'd refused to let die, and understood something she'd been too young to grasp before. Legacy wasn't about being perfect. It was about being willing to fight for what you believed in, even when the odds were terrible and the cost was high. It was about surrounding yourself with people who'd stand with you when standing alone was impossible. It was about making choices that you could live with when the dust settled and the battles were over. Her father had made those choices, and now so had she. After the meeting, after the investors had left and the conference room had emptied, Elena stood alone at the window of her office, looking out at the city that had nearly destroyed her and somehow made her stronger. Ryan knocked on the open door. "You did good today." "Thanks." Felt good to finally address everything publicly. "Sarah wanted me to give you this." He handed her a drawing, crayon on construction paper. It showed 3 stick figures standing in front of a tall building. One was labeled Dad, one was labeled Sarah, and one was labeled Elena. "She drew it last night," Ryan said. "Said it's her family, the people who keep her safe." Elena felt her throat tighten. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll come to dinner. We're making lasagna. Well, Sarah's making lasagna. I'm supervising to make sure the house doesn't burn down." "I'd love to." They left the office together, turning off lights, locking doors, securing the building that had become a symbol of everything they'd fought to protect. Outside, the city was alive with evening traffic and people heading home after long days, all of them carrying their own battles and victories. Elena thought about her father, about the empire he'd built, and the daughter he'd trusted to carry it forward. She thought about the choices she'd made, the prices she'd paid, the people she'd found along the way who'd become more than allies. She thought about the contract she'd almost signed, about how close she'd come to giving up everything because the alternative seemed impossible. And she thought about Ryan's daughter, Sarah, who'd survived her own nightmare and still had the courage to draw pictures of the family that had fought to save her. That was the lesson, Elena realized. Not that victory was guaranteed or that fighting was easy, but that some things were worth protecting even when the cost was terrible. That loyalty and courage and stubborn refusal to quit could overcome money and power and carefully laid plans. That in the end, people mattered more than profit. Her father had known that, had built his company on that principle, even when it cost him partnerships and profit margins. And now Elena understood why he'd been so adamant about it, why he'd put protections in his will to keep the company in family hands. Because he'd known that someday someone would try to take it, and he trusted his daughter to be strong enough, smart enough, stubborn enough to fight back. She had, and she'd won, not perfectly, not without cost. But she'd won in the ways that mattered, in the ways that would let her sleep at night and look at herself in the mirror without flinching. As they walked out of the building into the evening air, Elena made herself a promise. She'd run this company with integrity. She'd make decisions she could defend. She'd surround herself with people who valued loyalty over profit. And when the next crisis came, because it always did in business, she'd face it the same way she'd faced Vaughn and Reeves. By refusing to quit, by fighting for what mattered, by remembering that some legacies were worth any price to protect. The city lights came on as darkness fell, turning the financial district into a constellation of windows and possibilities. Somewhere out there, other battles were being fought. Other companies were struggling to survive. Other people were facing impossible choices. Elena hoped they'd find the strength she'd found, the allies she'd found, the stubborn refusal to let the bastards win. Because in the end, that's what separated the survivors from the casualties. Not intelligence or resources or perfect planning. Just the willingness to keep fighting when quitting would have been easier. Her father had taught her that, though she hadn't understood it at the time. Now she did. And she'd spend the rest of her life making sure that lesson wasn't forgotten.